Chapter 1455. 20 billion. Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian. Are you serious? Yi Xian nodded. Lan Ruo said, those people will go crazy. Yi Xian smiled. I want them to go crazy. After a moment of silence, Lan Ruo said, all right. As she said that, she opened her palm and a talisman suddenly flew out. Soon, a mysterious wanted order spread throughout the universe. Yi Ling was wanted. As long as they could capture Yi Ling, not only would they get the 8th Tao scripture, but they would also get the 9th Tao scripture and 20 billion fortune divine crystals. It was too tempting. Therefore, many people started to ask about Yi Ling's whereabouts. With so many powerful and mysterious forces looking for Yi Ling and Yi Ling not deliberately hiding his whereabouts, they found out about Yi Ling's whereabouts in a few hours. Heavenly Oblivion Starfield. Countless mysterious experts rushed to Heavenly Oblivion Starfield. In the starry sky, Yi Xian and Lan Ruo sped up. On the way, Lan Ruo suddenly said, I received news that they have found the whereabouts of my sister, Yi Ling. Yi Xian was a little excited. Really? Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian. Aren't you worried about her? Yi Xian blinked. Should I be worried? Lan Ruo shook her head. No one would do that to their sister. Yi Xian was speechless. Lan Ruo continued, some people are blinded by greed and will look for their sister, but there are also people who might go to the 5th dimension. Aren't you worried about the 5th dimension? At this point, she suddenly stopped. The 5th dimension. At this moment, she suddenly thought of something. Was the 5th dimension weak? If it was just the 5th dimension, then it was definitely weak. However, the problem was that it was not just the 5th dimension. The top experts of the whirling world were basically all in the 5th dimension. At present, there were many consolidation realm experts in the 5th dimension. It was really impossible for ordinary forces to target the 5th dimension. At this time, Yi Xian took out the map given to him by the white-robed Qing. He glanced at the map and said softly, we're almost there. Lan Ruo scanned her surroundings and soon, she furrowed her brows. Yi Xian asked, what's wrong? Lan Ruo said softly, this is a dead star sector. Yi Xian scanned his surroundings. Very quickly, he realized that it was just as Lan Ruo had said. This was a dead star sector. There was no sign of life at all. Yi Xian asked, Senior Lan Ruo, do you know of this star domain? Lan Ruo shook his head. I've never been here, nor have I heard of it. Yi Xian was a little surprised. You don't even know? Lan Ruo smiled. The universe is vast and boundless. It's not something a human can see. As she spoke, she looked into the depths of the distant starry sky and said softly, actually, this universe is full of dangers, but it's also full of opportunities. Yi Xian nodded. Indeed. As he spoke, he looked into the depths of the starry sky. There was a trace of curiosity and anticipation in his eyes. What kind of place was this place that Qing wanted him to go to? In the 5th dimension. Currently, the starry sky of the 5th dimension was filled with consolidation realm experts from the whirling world. To guard the 5th dimension. The whirling dance school had also sent all their super experts to the 5th dimension. It was obvious that the whirling sect was going to stick together with Yi Xian. This was normal. After all, the whirling sect and the 5th dimension were studying the 9th Tao scripture together. If the whirling sect did not put in some effort, how could they? Although the Whirling Sutra sect once possessed the 9th volume of the Tao scripture, they did not completely comprehend it. With their strength, it was practically impossible for them to completely comprehend the 9th volume of the Tao scripture. However, things were different now. Because Nian Nian was here. To be safe, the Whirling sect had directly sent all their consolidation realm experts. There were a total of 36 of them. In addition to the consolidation realm experts from other forces in the whirling world, there were a total of 96 consolidation realm experts in the 5th dimension. This lineup was actually very terrifying. And these 96 consolidation realm experts were guarding the starry sky of the fifth dimension. In addition, the Xuanji sect had set up dozens of super arrays in the sky of the fifth dimension. Right now, the fifth dimension was like an iron bucket. Inside the sword hall, everyone surrounded Nian Nian. Nian Nian was explaining the ninth Tao scripture word by word. As for Yuzun and the others, they listened carefully and recorded. On the side, Yi Jiming looked at Nian Nian. She realized that the current Nian Nian was no longer the weak Nian Nian. She was more like the fifth dimension Tendo. Was she really going to recover her memory? On the other side, Bai Dizzy was dealing with the matters of the fifth dimension. Right now, everything in the fifth dimension was basically handled by him. As for Guan Yin would also help, but most of his time was used for cultivation. At this moment, a man walked in. White Robe. At this moment, White Robe had reached the Tao attainment realm. Bai Dizzy looked at White Robe. How many people in the White Robe army have reached the Tao attainment realm? White Robe said, 360. 360. Bai Dizzy suddenly pointed with a finger and a storage ring landed in front of White Robe. There is a bottle of pills in it. Yes, it is called Tao God Pills. It can help you break through to the consolidation realm. There are 10 of them. Take one for yourself and give the rest as you see fit. Other than that, there are some pills that can increase cultivation level for the White Robe army. White Robe glanced at Bai Dizzy. He gave them to you? Bai Dizzy nodded. White Robe was silent. Bai Dizzy walked in front of White Robe and looked at him. His footsteps are too fast. If we can't keep up, we will be left behind. Do you understand what I mean? White Robe nodded. White Robe said softly, right now, the two strongest armies in our five-dimensional universe are the White Robe army and the Sword Sect swordsmen. He has already instructed us to nurture you at all costs. White Robe was silent. Bai Dizzy looked outside the hall with a complicated expression. White Robe, what was our dream back then? It was to rebuild order. And he is really doing this. Although he is very young and a bit willful, he really wants to make this world a better place. White Robe picked up the pills and left. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped. I fight for my beliefs. If he needs me, I can risk my life at any time. After saying this, he walked out of the hall. Inside the hall, Bai Dizzy was silent. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Bai Dizzy. This person was Jianghu. In fact, he had been back for some time. Bai Dizzy said, "How is the investigation going?" Jianghu said in a deep voice, "The Tao sect is targeting us. They have issued a wanted order. Anyone who kills a friend or relative of the Tao Master can obtain the contents of the 8th volume of the Tao scripture. And now, some mysterious experts have appeared in the five-dimensional universe. The weakest of them is at the consolidation realm." Bai Dizzy narrowed his eyes. The Tao sect. Jianghu nodded. I also know that they have begun to gather all the experts outside. They might be making a big move. Bai Dizzy was silent. Jianghu looked at Bai Dizzy. What do you think? Bai Dizzy said softly, the Tao Master said he has something to do and needs to leave the five-dimensional universe for a period of time. I think he definitely needs time right now. So, we have to fight for some time for him. Jianghu asked, how? After a moment of silence, Bai Dizzy said, the Tao sect doesn't dare to make a move because they are afraid of the forces behind the Tao Master. In other words, Miss Tingyun and the white-robed woman have released the news. They will say that the Tao Master has gone to find Miss Tingyun and the white-robed woman. This way, the forces in the dark will be afraid. As for the Tao sect, if they want to make a move, they must consider Miss Tingyun and the white-robed woman. As long as they consider Miss Tingyun and the white-robed woman, they won't dare to make a move easily. Jianghu nodded. Okay. Bai Dizzy said again, one more thing. Contact Xian City, the Gu race, and the Nanyue race. Tell them that we have invited them to the five-dimensional universe as guests and that we will study the 1st to 8th volume of the Tao scriptures together. Jianghu hesitated for a moment and said, will they come? Biyao said, if I were them, I wouldn't refuse. They need to kill one of us to obtain the contents of the 8th volume. But now, we don't need anything and will give it to them for free. In any case, the contents of the 1st to 8th volume have already been leaked. Since that's the case, why don't we be more straightforward? Jianghu spoke in a low voice, I'll get it done right now. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Within the hall, Biyao closed his eyes slowly. He was very worried at this moment. The Tao sect dared to target Yi Xian even though they knew how formidable the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyan were. Obviously, the Tao sect was confident. Such an ancient power definitely had extremely deep resources and reserves. The Tao sect. Fourth Tao looked at an old man in front of him. You're saying that Yi Xian has gone to look for the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyan? The old man nodded. That's the information I received. Fourth Tao fell silent. The old man continued, besides that, I don't know who used the Tao sect's name to issue an arrest warrant for Yi Xian's younger sister. Anyone who captures Yi Xian's younger sister won't just be rewarded with the 8th and 9th volumes of the Tao scriptures, there will also be 20 billion divine fortune crystals. Fourth Tao said, did you find out who it was? The old man shook his head. I couldn't. Fourth Tao chuckled. Forget it. It's not a bad thing for us anyway. The old man nodded. Some people have gone to the Sky Oblivion planet zone to look for Yiling. I guess someone has already found her. Fourth Tao smiled. Then, as if he had thought of something, his pupils suddenly contracted. Oh no. Someone purposely sent those people to look for Yiling, and there's a powerful soul in Yiling's body. Someone not only wants to divert the trouble, but also wants to frame our Tao sect. The old man, Fourth Tao narrowed his eyes. Who's so sinister? Sky Oblivion Planet Zone. Yiling stopped in front of a city gate because there was an old man standing not far from her. The old man was shrouded in a black robe, so his face couldn't be seen. The black-robed old man said hoarsely, Are you Yi Xian's younger sister? Yiling's face was expressionless. Yes. The black-robed old man said, I want to borrow something from you. Yiling looked at the black-robed old man. What? The black-robed old man said, a human head. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. An extremely strange scene appeared. When the black-robed old man charged at Yiling, his body was already in front of Yiling, but his head had fallen dozens of feet behind him. The black-robed old man's eyes were wide open, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He died with everlasting regret. Yiling suddenly turned her head. The next moment, she suddenly grabbed with her right hand. The space was torn apart, and her right hand directly grabbed a black-robed man. The black-robed man said in a trembling voice, Senior. Yiling's face was expressionless. Who told you to come to me? The black-robed man said in horror, It's Tao sect. They said that if we kill Yi Xian's younger sister, we can get the 8th and 9th Tao scriptures, as well as 20 billion fortune divine crystals. Yiling's expression was somewhat ferocious. You only know how to bully their younger sister. Are you done? Take me to Tao sect. The black-robed man. Chapter 1456. To Tao sect. Yiling was not joking. Under the lead of the black-clothed man, she went straight to Tao sect. After walking for a while, 3 black-robed men suddenly appeared not far in front of her. One of them said, It's, Yiling suddenly slapped out. Boom. The person who spoke immediately exploded. His soul was destroyed. The remaining 2 were petrified in place. At this time, Yiling gently stomped her right foot on the ground, and a dim light flew out. In an instant, the remaining 2 experts were directly erased by this dim light. Beside Yiling, the black-clothed man's body began to tremble. What kind of monster was this? Dao sect. At this moment, the black-clothed man wished he could eat Dao sect alive. Wasn't this Dao sect cheating? On the way to Dao sect, Yi Ling killed more than a dozen consolidation realm experts. All of them were instant kills. It was like killing a chicken. The black-clothed man beside Yi Ling had turned from fear to terror. Since when did consolidation realm experts become so weak? Was this senior in front of him too strong, or was he too weak? At this moment, the black-clothed man was confused. He had cultivated all his life and thought that he had reached the top of this world, but suddenly found that killing him was as easy as killing a chicken, Yi Xian. At this moment, he thought of Yi Xian. He thought of what Yi Xian had said. The son of the nine-dimensional plane. This guy might really be the son of the nine-dimensional plane. Along the way, Yi Ling's expression was cold. Angry. Extremely angry. She was actually very busy, because she had a lot of things to do. However, people kept coming to make trouble for her. What made her most disgusted was that these people wanted to capture Yi Ling to threaten Yi Xian. If they had a grudge against Yi Xian, they could have just looked for Yi Xian. Looking for his sister? Don't they know that his sister is the one I chose? Dao sect. Dao sect was located in the Dao domain, which used to be a holy land in the hearts of the world's cultivators. Because this was the origin of martial arts. Dao scriptures. All the cultivation methods in the universe, including all the divine abilities and innate martial arts, originated from the Daoist scriptures. Although the Daoist gate was not as powerful as it was in the past, it was still the number one force in the universe. In the outside world, consolidation realm experts were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns, but in this place, consolidation realm experts were nothing. On this day, a woman and a man in black arrived at the Dao domain. The woman was none other than Yi Ling. The black-clothed man beside Yi Ling said in a trembling voice, "Senior, we've reached the Dao domain." Yi Ling looked at the black-clothed man, and the black-clothed man said with a trembling voice, "Please spare my life, Senior." Yi Ling was expressionless. Scram. The black-clothed man turned and ran. Yi Ling looked into the distance and stomped her right foot. Boom. The entire Dao domain trembled violently. The starry sky trembled and cracked, and the ground collapsed. All the Dao domain experts were alarmed. Who was it? At this time, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Ling. The man was Dao Brother 4. Dao Brother 4 looked at Yi Ling. "It's Yi Xian's sister, Yi Ling." Yi Ling was expressionless. In the next moment, she slapped him. In the distance, Dao Brother 4's pupils suddenly shrank, and he punched out. Dao Fist. With this punch, the starry sky in front of him immediately became illusory. At the same time, a powerful force that could destroy heaven and earth swept towards Yi Ling. However, before the force of this punch could get close to Yi Ling, it disappeared without a trace. Not only that, but Dao Brother 4 instantly retreated tens of thousands of feet away. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the surrounding Daoist gate experts changed. In this confrontation, Dao Brother 4 was at a disadvantage. Yi Ling walked towards Dao Brother 4. "Aren't you looking for his sister?" "I'm here now." Dao Brother 4 looked at Yi Ling with an extremely solemn expression. Yi Ling suddenly punched out. Dao Brother 4's pupils suddenly shrank, and he blocked with his arm. Boom! The space where Dao Brother 4 was directly shattered, and Dao Brother 4 himself retreated tens of thousands of feet away. However, he did not die. He was only injured because he had also cultivated a Daoist body. Moreover, he had cultivated a Daoist body to the consolidation realm. Dao Brother 4 looked at Yi Ling, and he slowly clenched his right hand. In the next moment, he suddenly leaped up, and then he clenched his right hand tightly, and a flame gushed out from the palm of his hand. Fen Tianju. Dao Brother 4 suddenly slapped his palm down towards Yi Ling. Boom! A giant flaming palm swept down from the starry sky, and wherever the palm passed, the space was annihilated inch by inch. It was extremely terrifying. In the distance, Yi Ling was expressionless. She opened her palm, and a dim light shot up into the sky. Under everyone's gaze, the dim light directly shattered Dao Brother 4's palm. In the next moment, the dim light shot straight towards Dao Brother 4. In the sky, Dao Brother 4's pupils suddenly shrank, and he suddenly blocked with his arms. Boom! Dao Brother 4 instantly retreated tens of thousands of feet, and when he stopped, his physical body directly cracked. Yi Ling's attack directly cracked his physical body. In the distance, Yi Ling glanced at her right hand. Her right hand had already cracked. Yi Ling shook her head. Ling, this physical body is too weak. It can't even withstand 10% of my strength. However, it's enough. As she spoke, she looked at Dao Brother 4 in the distance, and in the next moment, she directly slapped him. Slap. With a crisp slap, Dao Brother 4 was directly sent flying, and this time, he flew for tens of thousands of feet. After slapping Dao Brother 4, Yi Ling did not stop. She directly disappeared on the spot, and when she reappeared, she was already in front of Dao Brother 4. Dao Brother 4's expression changed greatly. He was about to attack again, but Yi Ling suddenly slapped him again. Slap. A dim light directly slapped Dao Brother 4's face. Boom. Dao Brother 4 was blasted flying again. Moreover, his Dao body directly cracked open, and blood sprayed out. Yi Ling gazed at Dao Brother 4 who was blasted flying, and she was about to attack again. Meanwhile, over a dozen formidable auras swept over from behind her. Yi Ling suddenly turned around and suddenly smashed her fist forward. Bang! At this moment, the starry sky in an area of over 100 kilometers in front of Yi Ling collapsed, and those extraordinary experts from the Daoist sect were directly wiped out. Yi Ling turned around to look at Dao Brother 4. She was just about to attack, but she frowned when she clenched her right hand. She looked at her right hand, and her right hand was covered in cracks. Yi Ling remained silent. This physical body was quite weak, and it was utterly unable to withstand too much of her strength. Meanwhile, Dao Brother 4 suddenly spoke ferociously, "Who the hell is it?" Yi Ling looked at Dao Brother 4, and in the next moment, she directly vanished on the spot. In the distance, Dao Brother 4's pupils constricted, and he was just about to attack when a hand had clamped down on his throat. It was Yi Ling's hand. At the same time, a ray of dim light enveloped Dao Brother 4. The dim light forcefully suppressed all of Dao Brother 4's strength. Yi Ling gazed at Dao Brother 4 with an icy cold expression. Does the enmity between Yi Xian and the Daoist sect have anything to do with his younger sister? Does it? As she spoke, she suddenly clenched her fist. Bang! Dao Brother 4's body collapsed, but his soul transformed into a wisp of green smoke that drifted 30 kilometers away. Dao Brother 4 stared fixedly at Yi Ling, "Sacrifice the formation." As soon as he spoke, a ray of black light suddenly shot into the sky from the depths of the Dao domain. As soon as the ray of white light appeared, strange and mysterious talismans suddenly appeared around Yi Ling, and the ray of white light directly locked onto Yi Ling. Yi Ling smashed her fist forward. A ray of dim light instantly swept through the starry sky. Bang! The mysterious talismans were obliterated inch by inch. At this moment, streams of light suddenly erupted from the ray of white light, and these streams of light were like shooting stars that drowned Yi Ling below. Yi Ling was about to attack when she suddenly frowned. Because at this moment, her face had turned slightly pale. Her physical body was unable to support her any further attacks. Yi Ling fell silent for a moment, and then she smashed her right fist forward. Bang! Those streams of light collapsed inch by inch, and the white light array was also shattered by her punch in an instant. Yi Ling didn't attack again. She looked at Dao Brother 4, "If you dare to cause trouble for his younger sister again, I'll destroy the Daoist sect." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. Actually, she could destroy the Daoist sect now, but the price she would pay would be huge. Because Yi Ling's physical body couldn't bear it. Dao Brother Four's expression was extremely gloomy when he saw Yiling turn around and leave. Humiliation. This woman came to the Daoist sect to kill someone, shattered his Daoist body, and then left swiftly. The Daoist sect had never suffered such humiliation. However, there was nothing he could do. With his own strength, he couldn't do anything to this woman at all. And the consolidation realm experts of the Daoist sect were probably not enough in front of this woman. He could only watch as the woman left. Of course, at this moment, he was still thinking about a question. How strong was this woman? He could clearly feel that this woman hadn't displayed her full strength. At this moment, Yiling suddenly stopped in the distance. Seeing this scene, Dao Brother Four's expression changed. What was this woman trying to do? After Yiling stopped, she turned to look at Dao Brother Four. He still has a younger sister. If you really want to take revenge on him, you can go find his other sister. That sister likes to wear a plain dress, and the world calls her Tianming. You can go find her. Really? Dao Brother Four looked at Yiling. What do you mean? Yiling said, don't you like to find his younger sister? I'll introduce you to his younger sister. That sister is weaker, you can go find her. Dao Brother Four narrowed his eyes. Are you saying that the woman in the plain dress is weaker? Yiling nodded. Among all the people behind him, Tianming is the weakest. Dao Brother Four looked at Yiling. Why are you telling us this? Yiling was expressionless, because I don't like that woman. After saying that, she turned and left. Dao Brother Four suddenly asked, is that Tianming really the weakest? Yiling turned to look at Dao Brother Four. Do you think I'm above lying? After saying that, she turned into a dim light and disappeared at the end of the sky. Dao Brother Four was silent. Tianming. The weakest among all the people behind Yi Xian. At this time, an old man appeared beside Dao Brother Four. The old man said in a deep voice, this woman's words. Dao Brother Four looked at the dim light in the distant sky and said softly, such a strong person must not be above lying because she has her pride, so I believe what she said. Perhaps, that woman in the plain dress is our breakthrough. P.S. It's not very useful to ask for votes. Can anyone help? Chapter 1457. News of the fourth Dao brother being heavily injured by Yiling hadn't spread. The Daoist faction had sealed off the entire Dao domain, so outsiders didn't know that the fourth Dao brother's body had been destroyed. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall. The boundless hallowed grounds. The hallowed lord arrived before the bamboo house once more, and he bowed respectfully towards it. Master, Yiling has gone to the Dao world, and the fourth Dao brother's body has been destroyed. The woman stopped reading, and she fell silent for a moment before she shook her head and smiled. Why did the Daoist faction offend her? Aren't they courting death? The hallowed lord hesitated for a moment and said, Master said that there's a formidable soul within Yiling's body. Master, how strong is that soul? The woman chuckled, it's very strong. It's someone who once shocked an entire era. Very strong. The hallowed lord fell silent. Meanwhile, an ancient scroll floated into the bamboo house. The hallowed lord gazed at the bamboo house. Master, what's this? The woman said, Yi Xian once saved the Jialong clan in the dark dimension. Even though that woman in a plain dress forcefully stopped that karma, but when she spoke up to this point, she grinned. I think that martial emperor won't let it go just like that. The hallowed lord spoke in a low voice. Master, you intend to use that martial emperor to kill Yi Xian? The woman shook her head and smiled. That's not right. This enmity is between him and that martial emperor, so what does it have to do with us? There's a mental cultivation technique within the scroll, and it can help martial emperors break through the final barrier. I believe that if he takes that final step, then he probably won't be so afraid of that woman. The hallowed lord hesitated for a moment and said, Master, what are our chances of killing Yi Xian if we make a move? The woman's gaze descended onto the scroll, and she grinned with confidence. 100%, 100%. The hallowed lord was stunned, and he was about to speak when the woman smiled. So long as those three swords don't make a move, then I'm 100% confident in killing him. The hallowed lord asked, even if the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyan are here? The hallowed lord turned around and smiled. Do you think I'm bragging? The saint master hurriedly shook his head. No. The woman picked up the ancient book and walked out of the bamboo house. Today, she was wearing a dark green dress with mountains and rivers painted on it. She looked very quiet and elegant. The woman looked at the horizon and said with a light smile, "It's actually very simple to kill him." However, what would happen after killing him? Killing him was tantamount to poking a hornet's nest. Not to mention anything else, that plain-dressed woman will definitely kill me at all costs. I really can't beat that woman. As she spoke, she shook her head helplessly. The hallowed lord hesitated for a moment before he said, "Master, are you unable to resist that woman even with your strength?" The woman retracted her gaze and walked in front of the sacred leader. The sacred leader hurriedly bowed, not daring to look at the woman directly. The woman held the ancient book and gently patted the holy lord's head. Remember, that woman is invincible. As long as she didn't want to die, no one in this world could kill her. The only way to defeat her was to start with Yi Xian, because Yi Xian was her only weakness. Other than that, there was no other way to defeat her. Even if everyone in this universe joined forces, we might not be able to block a single strike of her sword. As she spoke, she looked at the horizon and sighed. Actually, I don't want to be her enemy either. But there's no other way. I really want to kill this Yi Xian. The sacred leader said in a low voice, "Master, there's something I don't understand. Since that plain-dressed woman is already so strong, then why is she still wandering aimlessly in space? Is she doing this to temper Yi Xian?" The woman shook her head and smiled. She isn't wandering aimlessly. She's too weak to see that countless causes of karma have already coiled around her. She's looking for the source of the cause of misfortune, the person who controls Yi Xian's fate. The sacred leader frowned slightly. The person who controls Yi Xian's fate? The woman nodded. The cause of misfortune. Everyone in the world doesn't really understand the cause of misfortune. This world is divided into yin and yang, good and evil. If there's a cause of misfortune, then there's a cause of misfortune. And this cause of misfortune is the head of all causes of misfortune. A person with a cause of good is equivalent to having great luck. He's protected by heaven and earth, protected by fate, and protected by the great Tao. This kind of person's life is like cheating, because whatever he does, there will be a cause of good. On the contrary, a person with a cause of misfortune will have a rough life with all sorts of troubles. Like a malefic star, even if he does a good thing, there might be a cause of misfortune. Not only that, anyone who is related to him will not have a good ending. As she spoke to this point, she paused and said, "The reason why Yi Xian is able to live until now is because of that woman and that man who changed his fate. Especially that plain-dressed woman." She forcefully shouldered countless karma of misfortune for Yi Xian. But she realized that these karma seemed endless. No matter how she shouldered it, there would be countless karma that would come to bother Yi Xian. So, she decided to find the cause of misfortune. The sacred leader asked, "And after finding it?" The woman smiled. "Of course, she'll kill it." The sacred leader, the woman suddenly said softly, "Actually, Yi Xian is quite pitiful. Don't think that he has many backers. If you look closely, you will realize that his enemies are not at his level at all. They are all several levels higher than him. No matter how hard he tries to become stronger, his enemies will always be stronger than him by at least a few levels." As she spoke to this point, she pointed at herself and smiled. "For example, me." The sacred leader, the woman continued, "Actually, I think the reason why he has a cause of misfortune might be related to his father and his sister." The sacred leader was a little confused. His father and sister? The woman nodded. A person cannot have a cause of misfortune for no reason. He was born with a cause of misfortune. Apart from himself, there is another reason, and that is his family. The sacred leader frowned slightly. His family? The woman looked up at the sky and said softly, "His sister is invincible in the world. No karma can touch her. Even the cause of misfortune can't touch her. As for his father, he also severed his past and present lives with one sword strike. No karma can touch him. The sacred leader said softly, so, this cause of misfortune has fallen on Yi Xian? But that shouldn't be the case. Or could it be that his father and sister used to? The woman looked at the sacred leader and smiled. The number of people that his sister used to kill is unimaginable. As for his father, looking at Yi Xian's bloodline, you should know that his father is not a good person. Although his temper has changed a lot over the years, he used to be called a lunatic. As she spoke to this point, there was a trace of indescribable color in her eyes. The sacred leader. The woman continued, of course, things are definitely not that simple. There is something wrong with Yi Xian himself. In short, this cause of misfortune is definitely related to his father and sister. If we want to kill Yi Xian, the best way is to make use of the cause of misfortune. Only then will we have a chance. As she spoke, she looked at the sacred leader. Go to the ultimate martial realm personally. Remember, don't let that martial emperor know that it was given to him by the sacred ground. Forget it. I'll go personally. With my strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to hide it from that martial emperor. As she spoke, she took the ancient scroll in the sacred leader's hand and disappeared on the spot. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian suddenly stopped and looked around. The starry sky was quiet and the stars were dim. Lan Ruo looked around with a calm expression. This place was not simple. However, with her strength, there were not many in this world who could kill her. Yi Xian took out the map that the white-robed Xing gave him and looked at it. Then, he looked around and said softly, the map shows this star domain. However, there seems to be nothing here. Lan Ruo said, let me take a look. Yi Xian passed the map to Lan Ruo. Lan Ruo looked at it. After a while, she looked to the right and opened her palm. A mysterious force rippled out and the starry sky around them started to tremble. After a while, a huge stone door appeared on their right. Yi Xian looked at the stone door. Behind the stone door was a long bluestone staircase that was tens of thousands of feet long. At the end of the staircase was a huge palace that floated in the starry sky. Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo. Lan Ruo shook her head. I've never seen it before. Yi Xian said, let's go take a look. Lan Ruo nodded. The two of them walked towards the stone door. When they reached it, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the stone door. The stone door was a little old. It was obvious that it had been here for some time. The two of them continued walking along the stone stairs. Along the way, Yi Xian suddenly said softly, Qing, must have been here before. Lan Ruo looked around and there was a hint of seriousness in her eyes. This place is a world of its own. It's part of the starry sky, but it's outside of this starry sky. It looks like this place isn't as simple as it seems. Yi Xian asked, is there any danger? Lan Ruo shook her head and smiled. Not yet. Since that senior allowed us to come here, it's obvious that there won't be any danger. However, we still have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded. He didn't dare to be careless when it came to unknown places like these. Lan Ruo looked at the palace in the distance and secretly raised her guard. Although she was powerful, it was important to know that there would always be someone better than her. It was always good to be careful. Soon, the two of them arrived in front of the palace. Yi Xian looked at the top of the palace. There were 3 big words on the top of the palace, Milky Way Sect. Milky Way Sect? Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Lan Ruo frowned slightly. At the same time, the sound of footsteps could be heard from within the palace. Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. He looked into the palace and was stunned for a moment. Then, he exclaimed in shock, holy shit, it's actually. Lan Ruo was speechless. Chapter 1458. The reason why Yi Xian was so shocked and surprised was that he knew the person in front of him. It was a woman in front of him. And this woman was none other than number 9, who had been with him before. The number 9 who needed to be recharged. There was no news of this woman after she left. And now, she was actually here. Seeing Yi Xian, number 9 was also a little surprised. She blinked and said, "Yes." Yi Xian took a look at number 9 and realized that she seemed to have become stronger. How did this guy cultivate? At this moment, number 9 suddenly smiled and said, "Why are you here?" It was obvious that she was also very happy to see Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "A friend asked me to come. By the way, why is number 9 here?" Number 9 said, "This is our base." Yi Xian blinked and said, "Base?" Number 9 nodded and said, "Yes." Yi Xian asked, "The Milky Way sect is from the Milky Way realm?" Number 9 smiled and said, "Yes." Yi Xian was silent. He didn't expect number 9 to be from the Milky Way realm. He didn't know much about the Milky Way realm. He only knew that area, and the little white guy seemed to have been to this place. The former prophet had also been to this place. Number 9 suddenly smiled and said, "Come with me, I'll give you a super treasure." With that, she took Yi Xian's hand and walked toward the main hall. Yi Xian was speechless. Lan Ruo looked at number 9 with a serious expression. Because this number 9 made her feel a hint of danger. Most importantly, this number 9's aura was completely absent, as if it didn't exist. It was a little strange. Number 9 brought Yi Xian to the main hall. In the main hall, he saw many strange things that he had never seen before. Lan Ruo was also looking around curiously. She had never seen these things before. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped and pointed to a strange big thing on the right. "Number 9, what is this?" Number 9 took a look at that strangely shaped big thing and said with a smile, "This is a space-time starship. It can travel through space-time tunnels and perform space jumps. It is currently the fastest known flying mount." Lan Ruo suddenly asked, "The fastest?" Number 9 nodded. "Yes. Because the speed of this object has already surpassed the speed of light by 2 times. Yi Xian blinked. "Light speed?" Number 9 thought for a moment, and then he said, "Do you not know what the speed of light is?" Yi Xian asked, "Is this the speed of light?" Number 9 nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian was silent. He really had no concept of this. Number 9 led Yi Xian towards the depths of the main hall. Along the way, there were some strange things everywhere. In next to no time, number 9 led Yi Xian to a secret chamber. A stone platform was placed within the secret chamber, and a sword was stabbed into the stone platform. Sword. The sword was 4 feet long, slightly longer than the average sword. One side of the sword was white, while the other side was black. It looked quite strange. Yi Xian looked at number 9. "What's this?" Number 9 smiled. "Unparalleled." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Unparalleled sword?" Number 9 nodded. "In our place, this sword is supreme and unsurpassed." Yi Xian blinked. "It's that powerful?" Number 9 said seriously, "It's very powerful. This sword is a combination of great Tao and technology. It's very terrifying." Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Technology?" Number 9 said, "A technological civilization." Yi Xian was even more puzzled. "A technological civilization?" Number 9 nodded. "Your civilization is a martial arts civilization, while ours is a technological civilization. Some places have biological civilizations, and this sword is forged from the advantages of a martial arts civilization and a technological civilization. Give it a try." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he asked, "Is a technological civilization powerful?" Number 9 blinked. "Any civilization is powerful." Lan Ruo suddenly asked, "What's the difference between a technological civilization and a martial arts civilization?" Number 9 thought for a moment, and then he said, "Actually, there's no difference in essence. The only difference is that your civilization cultivates itself, unearths its own potential, and allows itself to continuously grow and evolve. As for us, we create, constantly create. However, we're also learning from your civilization, because in many aspects, your martial arts civilization is even more terrifying than our technological civilization. Yi Xian and Lan Ruo looked at each other, and there was a hint of astonishment in their eyes. At this moment, number 9 said, "Try this sword." Yi Xian nodded. He opened his palm, and the sword flew into his hand. It was cold to the touch, and as light as a feather. Yi Xian looked at number 9, and number 9 smiled. This sword has two modes. The first is a martial arts mode. If this mode is activated, this sword will amplify the owner's martial arts techniques by about 50%. The second mode. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly interrupted number 9, 30% to 50%? Number 9 nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said, "Can I try it?" Number 9 smiled. Of course. Yi Xian held the sword in his hand while the profound energy within his body circulated. At the instant he circulated his profound energy, the sword trembled violently. In the next moment, he noticed that the speed at which his profound energy circulated had increased greatly, and it had increased by at least 50%. Yi Xian gazed at the sword in his hand with slight astonishment. A moment later, he opened his palm, and the sword suddenly flew out. A strand of sword light suddenly tore through space and appeared in the starry sky 3 kilometers away from the hall. Lan Ruo's eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of seriousness flashed through the depths of her eyes. This sword strike was able to threaten her, especially when it caught her off guard. This sword strike had a 30% chance of killing her. What did that mean? After all, she was more than 2 realms higher than Yi Xian. This sword strike was too terrifying. Yi Xian was quite shocked as well. Because he noticed that the might of his sword strike had really increased by at least 50%. Its speed hadn't increased, but its might had increased. This increase was quite terrifying. Meanwhile, number 9 spoke abruptly, "This sword technique hasn't been cultivated to its limits." Yi Xian gazed at number 9. Number 9 said, "If one cultivates this sword technique to its limits, then it won't be able to increase its strength. Because it can't increase the upper limit of a sword technique. The reason it can increase its strength is because it hasn't been cultivated to its limits. Now, one can rely on this swordsman to cultivate it to its limits." Yi Xian spoke softly, "In that case, not only will one not rely on this sword, but one can even use it as a mirror to find out where one is lacking and cultivate from there?" Number 9 nodded. Yes. That's the designer's original intention. The designer didn't design this sword so that one could rely on it. Instead, he wanted one to use it to find out where one is lacking and change. Yi Xian smiled, "That's a good sword." Number 9 smiled, "It's not just a sword technique. This sword can be used as a medium to execute any divine ability or martial technique." Yi Xian gazed at number 9 and said, "What's the second form?" Number 9 gazed at the sword in Yi Xian's hand and said, "Form change." The sword trembled slightly, and the space around it trembled slightly. Number 9 gazed at Yi Xian and said, "The second form is technological mode. There are 2 types of attributes in this mode. The first is strength, and the second is speed." Yi Xian blinked and said, "Speed?" Number 9 nodded and said, "It can increase one's speed to its limits." Yi Xian opened his palm. In the next moment, a sword suddenly appeared in space 3 kilometers away from the hall. After the sword appeared for around a breath of time, the space behind the sword split apart. Yi Xian remained silent within the secret chamber. Extreme speed. He had executed the insticle sword, and the speed of the insticle sword was at least twice as fast as his original speed. Although the speed of this sword wasn't as fast as Situ Tingyan's insticle, it was already quite close. Not to mention the surprise attack, even a consolidation realm expert would not be able to withstand it even if it was executed openly. Lan Ruo was silent. At this moment, her expression was solemn. If Yi Xian's sword had caught her off guard, there was at least a 50% chance that it could kill her. Of course, if she was prepared, it was basically impossible for this sword to kill her instantly. However, this insta-kill was a sneak attack. Who would fight against it openly? Yi Xian wouldn't be so stupid as to shout, "Watch my insta-kill sword," when he executed this sword technique. If this sword skill was used stealthily, the threat it posed would be too great. Yi Xian looked at the sword in his hand and slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, he activated his physical strength. The sword started to tremble. The space around it started to crack. Yi Xian hurriedly stopped when he saw this. Number 9 said, "This sword can increase one's strength by at least 2 times. However, there's a flaw as well. Regardless of whether it's increasing speed or strength, there's a certain side effect. Because one doesn't possess such speed or strength, so increasing speed or strength is equivalent to overdrafting one's body. So, one might be extremely exhausted after executing it." Yi Xian nodded. He'd felt slightly exhausted after executing instakill just now. Because he'd relied on this sword to increase the speed of instakill to the limits of what his body could endure. Actually, the most terrifying aspect of this sword wasn't its ability to increase sword technique, speed, or strength, but its ability to tell one how much room for growth there was. For example, this instant kill sword. This sword was telling him that he could do even better. That was the most terrifying aspect of it. If Situ Tingyun were to use this sword to execute instakill, then there probably wouldn't be much improvement because she'd already done it to the limit. Meanwhile, number 9 smiled. "Do you like this sword?" Yi Xian looked at number 9. "Are you really going to give it to me?" Number 9 rolled his eyes at Yi Xian. "Of course." Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Why?" Number 9 blinked. "What do you mean why?" Yi Xian asked, "Why are you giving it to me?" Number 9 said, "We're on the same side." Yi Xian was stunned. "We're on the same side?" Number 9 nodded. "Yes. We're on the same side." Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Why am I on the same side as you?" Number 9 said, "Because the Milky Way sect is my home." "My home?" Yi Xian was dumbfounded. "What the hell?" P.S. I miss the times when I was single. I could update 5 or 6 chapters a day. No matter if it's my writing speed or writing time, I was invincible. Moreover, I even had time to go to a spa. Chapter 1459. My family? Needless to say, Yi Xian was really confused. He was sure that he had nothing to do with the Milky Way realm. He had never been to the Milky Way realm. And this number 9 actually said that the Milky Way sect was his family. Not to mention Yi Xian, even Lan Ruo was shocked. This Milky Way sect was not a simple force. And this young Master Yi was actually related to the Milky Way realm? Seeing how shocked Yi Xian was, number 9 was puzzled. "You don't know?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Number 9, I don't know anything. I've never been to the Milky Way realm." Number 9 pondered for a moment, then said, "It doesn't matter. Anyway, your bloodline is the right one." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Bloodline is the right one?" Number 9 nodded. "Your bloodline." Yi Xian had a strange expression. Could this Milky Way sect have been founded by that cheapskate dad of his? As if thinking of something, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Number 9, the first time I met you, you wanted to destroy humanity." Number 9 blinked. "There was a programming error, but it has been fixed." Yi Xian was confused. Programming error? Number 9 thought for a moment, then said, "Just like how you went insane. Because I've been drifting in space for too long, plus I haven't been able to recharge, there's something wrong with my brain. I've activated anti-human mode." Anti-human mode. Yi Xian was speechless. Lan Ruo suddenly said, "Miss Number 9, what are you doing here?" Yi Xian looked at Number 9. He was very curious as well. Number 9 said, "Waiting for someone." Lan Roa glanced at number 9. Waiting for someone from the Milky Way realm? Number 9 nodded. Yes. I need supplies. Lan Roa hesitated for a moment, then said, What are you doing here? Number 9 said, Exploring. Our duty is to explore the universe and explore higher civilizations. Also, to find someone. Yi Xian was curious. Find someone? Who? Number 9 nodded. Find a man with the same bloodline as you. Yi Xian blinked. A man with the same blood as me? Number 9 nodded slightly. This is my main mission. My secondary mission is to explore a higher level of martial arts civilization, and then learn from their civilization. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Ninth, have you found that man? Number 9 shook his head. No. However, if it really doesn't work, I'll bring you back. Your bloodline is the same anyway. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Lan Roa said, Ninth lady, you don't participate in the disputes of this world, right? Number 9 nodded. We basically don't care about the affairs of other universes. We just explore, but, she looked at Yi Xian and said, if you want to fight, I can help. With that said, she waved her right hand, and a strange object appeared in her hand. Yi Xian was a little curious. What is this? Number 9 blinked. In the words of your world, this is a divine artifact. Lan Roa, Yi Xian was speechless. Number 9 smiled and said, It's very fun. I just need to press this little red button, and it will shatter a piece of space. With that said, she pointed at Lan Roa and said, It's equivalent to a full-powered attack from her. Lan Roa looked at number 9 and said, You know how strong I am? Number 9 nodded. I can feel it. You should be considered a top-notch expert in this universe of yours. Lan Roa was silent. What kind of place was this Milky Way realm? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Number 9, are you really willing to help me fight? Number 9 looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Of course. Yi Xian was about to say something when number 9 suddenly said, Wait. I'll contact Master. With that said, she turned around and waved her hand lightly. A huge light screen appeared in front of the three of them. Gradually, the light screen started to tremble. Soon, a woman appeared in the screen. When this woman appeared, number 9 instantly stood up straight, no longer laughing and joking like before. In the light screen, the woman was about to speak when she suddenly looked at Yi Xian. When she saw Yi Xian, she was stunned. Yi Xian looked at the woman and said, Senior? The woman looked at Yi Xian and said, Where's your father? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, I don't know. The woman frowned slightly. You don't know? Yi Xian nodded. I've never seen him before. The woman's frown deepened. You've never seen him before? Yi Xian nodded. The woman was silent. Yi Xian looked at the woman and said, Senior, you are? The woman looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, You should call me Auntie. Auntie. Yi Xian was speechless. Lan Roa's expression also became a little strange. Why was she acknowledging her as her relative? At this moment, the woman said again, I'm your biological aunt. Yi Xian looked at the woman and said, Biological? The woman nodded and looked at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Looks like they still haven't been able to resolve the cause of misfortune that you're carrying. Yi Xian was a little curious. Senior, you know about the cause of misfortune as well? The woman glared at Yi Xian and said, I'm your aunt. Not your senior. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, Senior, how can you prove that you're my aunt? The woman opened her palm and the blood vessels in her hands suddenly trembled. Gradually, a powerful force spread out from her body. Crazy demon bloodline. Although this crazy demon bloodline was not quite the same as his, it was indeed the crazy demon bloodline. The woman looked at Yi Xian and said, My bloodline is not quite the same as yours. That's because your father raised the family bloodline to an unprecedented height. Therefore, your bloodline is not exactly the same as mine. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Are you really my aunt?" The woman glared at Yi Xian and said, "Child, do you think I would recognize someone else as my nephew for no reason?" Yi Xian fell silent. The sudden appearance of an aunt was something he had not expected at all. Moreover, this aunt was from the Milky Way realm. At this moment, the woman looked at number 9 and said, "Still no news of him?" Number 9 nodded and said, "Not yet." The woman fell silent. At this moment, number 9 suddenly said, "Can I bring him back?" As she said that, she pointed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was speechless. On the screen, the woman looked at Yi Xian and said, "Do you want to come?" Yi Xian shook his head and said, "I still have a lot of things to do." The woman nodded and said softly, "It's indeed not convenient for you to come now." As she said that, she paused and said, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Yi Xian blinked and said, "Can I help you with anything?" The woman smiled and said, "You can tell me about it." Yi Xian hesitated and said, "I have a lot of enemies, and they are all very strong." The woman nodded and said, "I understand." Yi Xian blinked and said, "Understand?" The woman looked at number 9 and said, "Pass down the order. Get all the Milky Way sect disciples who are exploring the universe to rush to your universe and listen to his orders unconditionally." Number 9 nodded and said, "Understood." Yi Xian was speechless. The woman looked at Yi Xian with a complicated expression and said, "You must live well." As she said that, the screen gradually became illusory. Yi Xian looked at number 9 and number 9 said in a low voice, "My energy is running out." Yi Xian nodded and said, "Miss number 9, I still have a lot of things to deal with. Will you come with me?" Number 9 smiled and said, "Not for now. First, I need to replenish my energy. Second, I need to contact the Milky Way sect disciples here. They will all be here. I will go and look for you. Is that okay?" Yi Xian nodded and said with a smile, "All right." Number 9 said, "Then we'll meet again." Yi Xian smiled and said, "See you again." After saying that, he turned and left with Lan Ruo. After leaving the Milky Way sect, Yi Xian turned around and saw that the Milky Way sect was hidden again. Beside Yi Xian, Lan Ruo said softly, "Young Master Yi, your background is not simple." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Miss Lan Ruo, if I told you that I don't even know my own background, would you believe me?" Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "I would." Yi Xian was stunned. Lan Ruo smiled and said, "Young Master Yi has no reason to lie to me, right?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "That's true. Let's go." After saying that, he paused and said, "I'm sorry to have made Miss Lan Ruo accompany me here for nothing." Lan Ruo shook her head. "My gains today are not small either." After saying that, she looked around and said, "Young Master Yi, let's go." Yi Xian nodded. The two of them left. Along the way, Lan Ruo did not speak again. At this moment, she was thinking about a problem. Perhaps Xian City could get closer to Yi Xian. Although doing so might involve them in a whirlpool, there would definitely be benefits. However, she was still a little hesitant. They had to be careful about this matter. If they were not careful, Xian City might be doomed. Along the way, Yi Xian kept looking at the sword in his hand. Unparalleled. Unparalleled. With this sword, his battle prowess could be said to have increased by at least 2 levels. Most importantly, this sword could help him improve himself and not make him rely on it. The gains this time were huge. Yi Xian put away the sword and sped up. Ultimate martial realm. At the peak of a mountain, a middle-aged man sat cross-legged. His eyes were slightly closed while his hands were raised, and he seemed as if he was in a meditative state. Wu Li. A martial emperor. One of the supreme experts in this universe. Not only was he a true God Realm expert, he was even at the peak of the God Realm. However, he was still unable to take that step. Right at this moment, Wu Li suddenly opened his eyes. He turned around and saw a woman in a dark green dress standing not far away. Wu Li's eyes narrowed slightly because he hadn't noticed when this woman had appeared. The woman's back was facing Wu Li as she smiled and said, "It's best that you don't attack because you can't do anything to me." Wu Li was expressionless. "Is that so?" As he spoke, he blasted his fist forward. Bang! The surroundings instantly became illusory. However, the woman didn't move at all and wasn't affected at all. At this moment, there was a serious expression in Wu Li's eyes. The woman opened her palm, and an ancient scroll descended before Wu Li. "It should be able to help you." Wu Li looked at the woman and was about to speak, but at this moment, the woman had already disappeared. Wu Li frowned slightly. A moment later, he opened the scroll, and when he saw the contents, his pupils suddenly constricted. Chapter 1460. On the peak of the mountain, Wu Li put away the scroll, and he remained silent for a long time before he said softly, "Who exactly are you?" There was no response. A moment later, Wu Li sat cross-legged on the ground. Cultivate. Previously, he was already a little lost in cultivation because he had already reached his limit. Previously, it was as if he had no other way out. But now, the contents of this ancient scroll had pointed out a path for him. This time, he had a 90% chance of breaking through. He seemed to have thought of something, and he opened his eyes and looked up into the sky. At this moment, he thought of that woman in a simple dress. The woman who had threatened him. That woman was so powerful that he didn't dare to make a move against her back then. Because he wasn't confident. He could only watch helplessly as the youth rescued Jia Lu from the Naga dragon tribe. He could not take this lying down. Wu Li slowly closed his eyes. "Woman, just you wait." As he spoke, he began to cultivate. Gradually, the aura around him grew stronger and stronger. On the other side, the woman stood in the clouds and looked down. No one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, the holy leader appeared beside the woman. The holy master saluted respectfully. "Master, Yi Xian went to an unknown starfield, but the mysterious city lord is following him. Our people don't dare to approach." The woman smiled. She looked in the direction of the fifth dimension and said softly, "If I'm not wrong, he should be about to awaken the spirit of the great Tao. As long as he dared to awaken the spirit of the great Tao, the Tao sect would fight to the death." In addition to Wu Li who was about to break through. What happened next should be very fun. However, this is still not enough. The sacred leader was a little curious. Other than us and the Tao sect, does he have any other enemies? The woman smiled and said, "Yes." And there were a lot of them. Because of the Tao scripture. As she spoke, she glanced at the sky and said softly, "There are some mysterious powers. However, these powers have hidden themselves too deeply. Ordinary people did not even know of their existence. And these mysterious powers are very interested in the Tao scripture." The holy master asked, "Why?" The woman laughed, "Because they all want to reach the level of the Tao scripture's owner." The hallowed lord hesitated for a moment and said, "Master, in your opinion, how strong is the owner of that scripture?" The woman's smile gradually disappeared. "Very strong." The sacred lord fell silent. Very strong. To be able to gain the approval of the master in front of him, he was definitely not an ordinary person. The woman continued, "How could someone who could create a martial arts system be an ordinary person?" As soon as she finished speaking, she looked up into the sky and said with a smile, "I'm going to see that little fellow." After saying that, she disappeared directly. In the five-dimensional universe. After Yi Xian parted ways with Lan Ruo, he returned to the fifth dimension. As soon as he did so, Nian Nian appeared in front of him. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You knew I was coming back?" Nian Nian shook her head. "It was Sister Yu who told me." "Yu Zun." Yi Xian gently rubbed Nian Nian's little head. "It's been hard on you these days, hasn't it?" Nian Nian shook her head again. It wasn't hard. As she spoke, she raised her head and looked at Yi Xian. I've already finished reading those scriptures. Yi Xian asked, are you done? Nian Nian nodded. They're waiting for you. Yi Xian held Nian Nian's hand. Let's go. Nian Nian smiled sweetly and turned to leave with Yi Xian. At the moment they turned around, Yi Xian did not notice that Nian Nian tilted her head slightly and glanced at the sky. In the sky, in the clouds, a woman in a dark green dress smiled. What a fifth dimension Tendo! This woman was the mysterious woman from the Holy Land. The mysterious woman looked down. Looking at the backs of Yi Xian and Nian Nian below, she smiled and said, it seems that I have to be careful of this fifth dimension Tendo. Inside the hall, Yi Jiming handed a scroll to Yi Xian, the contents and notes of the 9th volume, as well as mental cultivation methods and martial arts. As she spoke, she paused and said, only Nian Nian knows the contents. Yi Xian looked at Yu Shi and Yu Zun who were not far away. Yu Shi smiled and said, young Master Yi, the 9th volume of martial arts and mental cultivation methods, Yi Xian pointed and the scroll in his hand flew to Yu Shi, sect leader Yu, make a copy. Yu Shi was silent. She also wanted the complete version of the 9th volume of martial arts and mental cultivation methods. However, she was very clear that this was a bit greedy. Moreover, most importantly, she wanted to bring the experts of Whirling Sect back to Whirling World. It was too dangerous to continue staying here. Yi Xian smiled and said, Sect leader Yu, this 9th volume originally belonged to Whirling Sect. Since you gave it to me, how could I keep it for myself? Just accept this Dao scripture martial art and Dao scripture mental cultivation method. Yu Shi was silent. Yi Xian said again, Sect leader Yu and the others have been out for some time, they must be homesick, right? Yu Shi also looked homesick. Yi Xian smiled and said, I understand sect leader Yu's thoughts and also respect sect leader Yu's thoughts. Yu Shi's expression was complicated, young Master Yi. I have to consider the whole sect, I'm sorry. After saying that, she turned and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, Sect leader Yu Shi. Yu Shi stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian took the scroll and walked to Yu Shi, this is what your Whirling Sect deserves. Also, your Whirling Sect does not owe me, Yi Xian, anything. On the contrary, I owe you a favor. After a moment of silence, Yu Shi said, Young Master Yi, take care. After saying that, she took the scroll and left. Yu Zun looked at Yi Xian, take care. Yi Xian smiled and said, take care. Yu Zun also left. They left. Yi Jiming suddenly said, with this, the Whirling Sect will take more than 30 Consolidation Realm experts with them. Yi Xian said softly, they have no obligation to stay and die with us. Isn't that right? Yi Jiming was silent. At this time, Bai Dizzy walked in. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy, how is the situation in the 5th dimension now? Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, after the Whirling Sect leaves, we still have 68 Consolidation Realm experts. As for our 5th dimension, we still don't have any Consolidation Realm experts. However, Miss and Lanxiu and the others are already trying to break through to the Consolidation Realm. If nothing unexpected happens, Miss and Lanxiu and the others will reach the Consolidation Realm within a month. Yi Xian nodded. And Lanxiu, Shao Qi, Arrow, Zhang Wenxiu, and the other girls had always been the focus of the 5th dimension's nurturing. It could be said that all the resources were prioritized toward them. Bai Dizzy said again, according to my people's investigation, the Dao sect has already called for their disciples to return to the sect. In addition, they are also mobilizing some forces that are attached to them. They may be making a big move recently. A big move. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then said, what about the boundless sacred ground? Bai Dizzy shook his head, there is no movement from this force. Yi Xian frowned slightly, no movement? Bai Dizzy nodded. Yi Xian said softly, Miss Lanrua told me that we must be careful of the boundless sacred ground because the former Dao Ting is their mortal enemy. Moreover, Qing Zhu and the others are still exiled. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, this force will not let us grow. Yi Xian nodded, you shouldn't be able to find anything. I will ask Xian City to help investigate this force. Bai Dizzy nodded, all right. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy, how's the power of faith? Why don't I feel anything? Bai Dizzy smiled, you. Try activating your God Seal. Yi Xian nodded, he activated the God Seal. The next moment, his face changed instantly. Endless power of faith surged out from the God Seal and converged towards his body like a tide. Gradually, Yi Xian's face changed. Because he found that after the power of faith entered his body, it completely merged with his body. The White Emperor's son smiled and said, this is the purest power of faith. With the support of this power of faith, your combat strength will increase by at least 2 to 3 levels. If it's a little more, your strength will become even more terrifying. Power of faith. Yi Xian spoke softly, I finally understand why some people like to deceive others. Needless to say, the power of faith was really extraordinary. Moreover, one didn't need to cultivate. So long as others believed in one would be able to obtain an endless supply of power of faith. It was simply like becoming stronger while lying down. At this time, the White Emperor's son said, I invited the ancient clan, the Southern Yu clan, and the Xian city to discuss the Taoist scriptures. Among these forces, the Qi clan of the Heavenly Oblivion Galaxy did not come. I'm afraid this force will become our enemy. Yi Xian asked, what's the attitude of the ancient race and South Shine clan? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian, they've already made it clear that they won't become enemies with us, and they won't interfere in the matter between us and the Dao sect. Yi Xian nodded, in other words, our biggest enemy now is the Dao sect. Bai Dizzy nodded, we still don't know anything about the Dao sect's strength, and it's extremely disadvantageous to us. However, I believe they're definitely afraid of the white-robed woman and Miss Tingyun. Otherwise, with their strength, they would have made a move long ago. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. With his current strength, killing a consolidation realm expert was basically no problem. However, the Dao sect didn't just have consolidation realm experts. Moreover, as the birthplace of the Dao scriptures, this place was definitely not that simple. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, should we awaken the spirit of the great Dao? Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming, can we awaken it? Yi Jiming nodded, as long as we combine the 9 Dao scriptures. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Nian Nian suddenly said, no. Yi Xian and the other two looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian was stunned, then a little confused, what's wrong? Yi Xian looked at Nian Nian, you just said no. Nian Nian looked at Yi Xian, still a little confused, did I say that? Yi Xian and Yi Jiming looked at each other, and Yi Jiming sent a voice transmission with Xian Qi, she's weird sometimes. Yi Xian glanced at Nian Nian, he gently rubbed her little head, and said softly, if we summon the spirit of the great Dao now, what do you think will happen? Bai Dizzy said solemnly, not to mention anything else, the Dao sect will definitely fight us to the death, and some of the forces that are still watching will probably take action to snatch the Dao scriptures and the spirit of the great Dao. Yi Xian squatted down, looked at Nian Nian, and smiled slightly, I understand. Nian Nian held Yi Xian's hand tightly. A moment later, while Yi Xian and the others were discussing matters, Nian Nian left the main hall. After leaving the main hall, Nian Nian unknowingly came to a cloud. To be precise, she came to the woman in a dark green dress. The woman looked at Nian Nian in front of her, smiling without saying a word. Nian Nian looked at the woman, and a moment later, she suddenly smiled, isn't it good to be alive? The woman blinked, I remember you saying before that no one can kill you without using 3 strikes, right? Nian Nian nodded, I did. The woman's lips curled up, I'm a little more arrogant than you. If I don't use 3 strikes, I can kill anyone I want. P.S. I also want to be able to say something especially awesome one day. If I don't use it, who dares to be first in the monthly votes? Everyone, do you think I'll ever have the chance to say something so awesome in my life? Chapter 1461. 3 Strikes. Nian Nian looked at the woman in front of her. How arrogant. The woman smiled and said, same to you. Nian Nian said, let's go. The woman nodded. All right. The two women strolled through the clouds. Nian Nian said softly, you're the first person to discover me. The woman smiled and said, you're also the first person to discover me. Nian Nian turned her head and looked down. The current 5-dimensional universe is the 5-dimensional universe in my heart. The woman nodded. You didn't misjudge me. Nian Nian smiled and said, yes. She was quite proud. The woman chuckled and said, you shouldn't have gotten involved in his karma. Nian Nian shrugged. It's too late to retreat now. Isn't that so? The woman glanced at Nian Nian and smiled. You don't want to retreat. Nian Nian blinked. I'm his sister Nian. The woman looked up at the sky and said softly, you deliberately lost your memory because you didn't want to be targeted by the calamity on him. You wanted to use another method to protect him. Nian Nian smiled and said, you didn't dare to attack directly because of the woman in the plain dress. The woman nodded. I can't beat her. Nian Nian said, I can't beat her either. The two women looked at each other and smiled. At this moment, the woman stopped. She looked down and said softly, do you know? The moment I saw him, I almost gave up. Nian Nian was a little curious. Why? The woman smiled and said, I don't know why either. I can't explain that feeling. Nian Nian asked, what's his relationship with you? The woman smiled. He can be considered family. Nian Nian blinked. Considered family? The woman nodded. Very close. Nian Nian smiled and said, and you wanted to kill him? It looks like there's a story. The woman smiled and said, there's indeed a story. However, it's all the grudges of the older generation. I don't want to talk about it. Nian Nian blinked. I think there's someone responsible for every grievance. What do you think? The woman laughed. I think you're right. However, if I kill him, he definitely deserves it. Nian Nian was silent. The woman stopped. She looked at the sky and said softly, you won't dare to recover your memories in a short period of time, and you won't dare to forcefully interfere with his matters. Am I right? Nian Nian nodded. Yes. The woman said with a smile, then we shall meet again. After saying that, she walked into the distance. Behind him, Nian Nian looked at the woman in silence. At that moment, a man appeared behind Nian Nian. It was Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian, who is she? Nian Nian was stunned. The calmness in her eyes turned into confusion. She looked up at Yi Xian. Who is it? Yi Xian pointed at the woman who had already disappeared in the distance. That woman. Nian Nian looked into the distance. A moment later, she said softly, I don't know. Yi Xian frowned slightly. There was something wrong with Nian Nian. At this moment, Nian Nian grabbed Yi Xian's hand. Let's go. Yi Xian looked at Nian Nian and asked softly, are you all right? Nian Nian shook her head slightly. I'm fine. Yi Xian squatted down and stared at Nian Nian. Are you really all right? Nian Nian lowered her head slightly and said softly, I don't know either. I've been having some strange dreams recently. Yi Xian asked softly, what dream? Nian Nian shook her head. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. Yi Xian hurriedly said. Then I won't think about it anymore. As he said that, he gently rubbed Nian Nian's little head. Let's go back. Nian Nian nodded. All right. Yi Xian turned his head and looked in the direction that the woman had disappeared in. Then, he pulled Nian Nian and left. Dao sect. In a certain hall, the fourth Dao elder was sitting cross-legged on the ground. At that moment, his body had already condensed, but it was no longer a Tao body. His Tao body had been shattered by that woman. If he wanted to cultivate it again, it would be extremely difficult. In front of the fourth Tao elder was a statue of a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man held an ancient scroll in his hand and looked very elegant and quiet. This person was the Tao sect's patriarch, the founder of the Tao scripture. At that moment, an old man walked in and bowed respectfully to the fourth Tao elder. We receive news that Yi Xian seems to be looking for the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun. The fourth Tao elder opened his eyes. Have you found them? The old man shook his head. I don't know. The fourth Tao elder was silent. After a moment, he said again, any news from the second master? The old man shook his head. No news at all. The fourth Tao elder asked again, what about the Holy Land? What exactly is their attitude? The old man said in a deep voice, the Holy Land. They're a little perfunctory. The fourth Tao elder frowned slightly. What do you mean? The old man said, what the Holy Land means is that they are also mortal enemies with Yi Xian, but they have no intention of making a move. I think they want us to fight Yi Xian to the death first, and then they'll reap the benefits. The fourth Tao elder's face was expressionless. Idiots. They're still scheming against us even now. It's impossible for the Holy Land to achieve anything. The old man nodded. Besides the Holy Land, Dark City, the ancient clan, and the South Shine clan have expressed that they won't interfere in the matter between us and Yi Xian. The fourth Tao elder looked at the old man. Dark City has expressed its position as well? The old man nodded. The fourth Tao elder fell silent. The old man continued, our Tao sect's disciples have basically all returned, and those who haven't are on their way back. Besides that, some of our subordinate powers have sent their strongest experts to our Tao sect as well. As he spoke, he looked at the fourth Tao elder. Fourth master, when do you think we should make a move? The fourth Tao elder shook his head. Yi Xian alone can kill him as easily as killing a chicken. But what happens after he's killed? The people behind him will definitely launch a frenzied revenge against our Tao sect. Moreover, if they continue to target our Tao sect while hiding in the shadows, then our Tao sect will be in an extremely bad situation. So, if we want to kill Yi Xian, we must first destroy the powers behind him, and we can use Yi Xian to draw them out. The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, Fourth Master's words make sense. However, we still don't understand the powers behind Yi Xian. The fourth Tao elder spoke softly, it doesn't matter. So long as Yi Xian is here, they will show themselves. This time, our Tao sect will go all out. Let me see if the powers behind him can fight our Tao sect. As he spoke, he gazed at the old man. Use all the connections of our Tao sect and invite all the experts we can. Moreover, tell them that our Tao sect will share all the Tao scriptures once we succeed. Share all the Tao scriptures. The old man nodded slightly. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Within the hall, the fourth Tao elder slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, he recalled what Yi Ling had said before he left. Yi Xian had a sister. The woman in the plain dress. Previously, the Tao sect had sent people to look for the woman in the plain dress, but all of them had died. However, this didn't mean anything because with his strength, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to kill 10 consolidation realm experts. Moreover, if the woman in the plain dress wasn't strong enough, it was very likely that she had already been injured when she killed the 10 consolidation realm experts of the Tao sect. If that was the case, then this woman in the plain dress would be the breakthrough point for the Tao sect. However, he was still a little worried. He was worried that Yi Ling was lying to him. However, the problem was that an expert of this level shouldn't be lying, right? Somewhere in the starry sky, there was a city in this star field. This city wasn't big, it was just a small city. Divine City. This city was extremely special. Very few people in the world knew about it because there was a requirement to enter this city. That was to be at least half a step into the divine realm. It could be said that this city was a club of top experts. On this day, a middle-aged man came to the divine city. This person was the second Tao elder. After the second Tao elder entered the city, there was only a small tavern in the city. The Taoist's second brother arrived at the tavern. At this time, the tavern was a little deserted. There were only 3 people in the tavern, a tavern manager who was calculating with an abacus, a waiter who was cleaning the tables and chairs, and a swordsman who was drinking. Seeing the second Tao elder, the tavern owner smiled slightly. "What do you need, sir?" The second Tao elder walked in front of the tavern owner. "I'm looking for someone." The tavern owner shook his head. "Sir, this is a place to drink." The second Tao elder looked at the tavern owner. He took out a storage ring and placed it in front of the tavern owner. The tavern owner glanced at it. There were a total of 1 billion fortune divine crystals in the storage ring. 1 billion. This was a huge sum of money. The tavern owner glanced at the second Tao elder. "Who are you looking for?" The second Tao elder said in a deep voice, "The third young lady." The tavern owner asked, "The third young lady of the Tao sect?" The second Tao elder nodded. The tavern owner put away the storage ring and pointed to a table in front of him. "Half a month ago, she drank here." The second Tao elder frowned slightly. "Where is she now?" The tavern owner said, "The northern wilderness." The second Tao elder was stunned. The northern wilderness. Not far away, the swordsman who was drinking suddenly stopped. The tavern owner said with a smile, "It's not too late to chase after her now." The second Tao elder was silent. The tavern owner said with a smile, "Would you like a cup of spring sword?" The second Tao elder took out another storage ring and placed it in front of the tavern owner. "Ask about someone." The tavern owner put away the storage ring and said, "Who?" The second Tao elder looked at the tavern owner. "Yi Xian." "Yi Xian." The tavern owner was stunned and asked, "The 5-dimensional universe?" The second Tao elder nodded. After a moment of silence, the tavern owner put the storage ring back in its original position and shook his head. The second Tao elder frowned slightly. "Do you not know or do you not dare to say?" The tavern owner said with a smile, "I know a little about Tao Yi, but I can't say." The second Tao elder stared at the tavern owner. "You can't say?" The tavern owner nodded. The second Tao elder was silent. Who was this Yi Xian? Why were the people of this place so afraid of him? One must know that the Tao sects did not dare to be arrogant in this place. At this moment, the tavern owner suddenly said, "Dear customers, we are going to close." The second Tao elder glanced at the story and turned to leave. Not far away, the swordsman put down his wine glass and got up to leave. Not long after the two left, the tavern owner came to a room in the tavern and bowed slightly. "Master," inside the room, a voice sounded. "Are you wondering why I didn't let you investigate the Yi Xian?" The tavern owner nodded. This disciple is indeed puzzled. Inside the room, the voice was silent for a long time before saying, "The son of an old friend." The tavern owner. Chapter 1462. After second brother left the tavern, he went straight to the northern wilderness. Along the way, second brother's expression was solemn. He came to the divine city for 2 purposes. One was to find the third young lady, and the other was to inquire about Yi Xian's background. In his opinion, this tavern should know about Yi Xian's background. What he did not expect was that the tavern's people did not dare to say it. It was not that they did not know, but they did not dare to say it. This was thought-provoking. In any case, Taoism had no way out now. Second brother sped up. In the 5-dimensional universe. On this day, Yi Xian came to a hall. Inside the hall stood a middle-aged man. The 9th master. Yi Xian walked to the 9th master and took out a scroll and handed it to him. The 9th master glanced at the scroll. It was a Tao scripture. A complete version of Tao scripture. The ninth master looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You're giving it to me just like that? Yi Xian said with a smile, are you touched? The ninth master shook his head and smiled. A little, but, are you really giving it to me just like that? Yi Xian smiled. You've helped me a lot along the way. The ninth master thought for a moment and said. Actually, I'm afraid of the plain-dressed woman. Yi Xian blinked. Senior, I've heard you say that you can take 2 strikes from Qing. This, the ninth master laughed. Yi Xian, you're not a good friend. How dare you slap my face? Yi Xian said with a smile, take it. The ninth master's expression was complicated. To be honest, we've all underestimated her. As he said, he looked at Yi Xian. Back then, I was still very weak. In my opinion, she was only 1 or 2 levels higher than me. But now, it seems that my thoughts were too ridiculous. Yi Xian was silent. Didn't he also underestimate Qing's strength? Meanwhile, the ninth house added, actually, we might be underestimating her as well. Yi Xian looked at the ninth floor. What do you mean? The ninth floor smiled, because we have been using our knowledge to measure her, but she has already surpassed our knowledge. Just like a frog at the bottom of a well, it has always used its own thoughts to measure the sky outside. Even if it feels that the sky might be bigger than it imagined, how could it have imagined that the sky was not as big as it imagined? As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. It's not that your enemy is too stupid, it's that she's too strong. It's so abnormal that it shouldn't even exist in this world. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he thought of Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy had actually been paying attention to the plain-dressed lady all along. But in the end, he discovered that he had still underestimated her. Including him, Yi Xian. Back in Green City, he had thought that Qing was a sword deity. But now, it seemed that it was such a stupid idea. The ninth house said, I'm telling you one thing. The Taoists aren't scary because they don't know the true strength of the plain-dressed lady. What's scary? He was the kind of person who knew the true strength of the plainly dressed woman, but still dared to make an enemy out of her. This kind of person is a real threat to you. Yi Xian nodded. I understand what you mean. The ninth house smiled. At first, I thought you were just a prophet in the afterlife. But then I realized that things aren't that simple. Yi Xian said with a smile, to be honest, I'm still very confused about many things. The ninth house said, becoming stronger is the way to go. However, I realized that no matter how hard you try to become stronger, your enemy will always be much stronger than you. What a tragedy. Yi Xian was speechless. You're taking pleasure in my misfortune. The ninth house laughed. By the way, I have to go too. Yi Xian was puzzled. Go? The ninth house nodded. I've been away for so long. Now that I've regained my freedom, I want to go back and have a look. Yi Xian hesitated, then asked, will you come back? The ninth house smiled. Yes. Yi Xian took out a storage ring and handed it to the ninth house. Take care. With that, he turned and left. The ninth house glanced at the storage ring and was stunned the next moment. There were 10 million fortune divine crystals in the storage ring. After parting ways with the ninth house, Yi Xian came to a silent starry sky. In his hand was the supreme sword. He didn't immediately cultivate the ninth Tao scripture's cultivation method and martial arts because he hadn't even cultivated the instant kill sword and the burning heaven sword to their limits. What he needed to do now was to use this sword to cultivate his instant kill swordsman to his limits. Only then would he consider cultivating the ninth Tao scripture's martial arts. While Yi Xian was cultivating, a few new half-step consolidation realm experts appeared in the fifth dimension. Enlancio. When he learned that Enlancio had broken through, Bai Dizzy was also shocked. He knew that Enlancio and the other girls were talented, but he didn't expect that Enlancio would reach the half-step consolidation realm so quickly after obtaining cultivation resources. Faster than White Robe and Jianghu. Although it was only a half-step, it was still very terrifying. Not long ago, Anlanxiu was only in the Tao realm. How long had it been to reach the half-step consolidation realm? Of course, this was a very good thing for the current fifth dimension. Currently, the fifth dimension was lacking in experts. The Northern Wilderness. The Northern Wilderness was a wasteland, and this wasteland was not simple. It could even be called a forbidden area. Even a half-step divine realm expert would not dare to step into it. The reason why this place became a forbidden area was because the Tao sect's ancestor had set up a powerful enchantment here. No one knew why the Tao sect's ancestor set up an enchantment here, not even the people of the Tao sect. Although countless years had passed, the enchantment was still strong. Only half-step divine crystal realm experts could barely get close to this wasteland. The second Tao brother came to the top of a mountain. Below the mountain was a wasteland. At first glance, it was a blurry wasteland. Enchantment. The second Tao brother looked into the distance, his face a little gloomy. He was already too late. At this time, a man with a long blade suddenly appeared behind the second Tao brother. The second Tao brother glanced at the man with the long blade. "You've been following me for so long, what's the matter?" The man with the long blade was expressionless. "Do you need a thug?" The second Tao brother narrowed his eyes slightly. "What do you want?" The man with the long blade said, "As far as I know, your master once created a sword skill. No one in your Tao sect can successfully cultivate this sword skill, right?" The second Tao brother looked at the man. "You're blade addict." The man said, "Give me that scroll, I'll kill that Yi Xian for you." The second Tao brother shook his head. "You can't kill him by yourself." The man looked at the second Tao brother. "I can try." The second Tao brother said in a deep voice. "I can give you that scroll, but I have a condition. This condition is not for you to kill Yi Xian, because you can't kill him by yourself. What I want is for you to follow me to the Tao sect. When I want you to attack, attack." After a moment of silence, the blade addict nodded. "Okay." The second Tao brother pointed his finger and an ancient scroll appeared in front of the man. "This is the first half." "It's the first half. I'll give you the second half after we kill Yi Xian." The blade addict said, "Okay." The second Tao brother slowly clenched his right hand, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly realized something. That was because there were too many martial arts manuals in the Tao sect. In addition to the Tao scriptures, there were many other martial arts, and these martial arts had a fatal temptation to the experts outside. If the Tao sect was willing, who knew how many experts would rush to the Tao sect to help? Thinking of this, the second Tao brother sneered. He turned around and left. Back to the Tao sect. After returning to the Tao sect, the second Tao brother immediately used the Tao sect's resources to invite experts from all over the heavens to the Tao sect. Under the temptation of those martial arts manuals, more and more consolidation realm experts rushed to the Tao sect. Because there were not only martial arts manuals, but also Tao scriptures, martial arts, and some Tao techniques. These were things that countless people dreamed of. Under such temptation, not many people could resist. On this day, the second Tao brother personally came to the sacred land. The Holy Temple. The second Tao brother looked at the Holy Lord in front of him. "Holy Lord, this time, the Tao sect will do its best to kill Yi Xian." The Holy Lord was silent. The second Tao brother smiled. "Holy Lord, you should have some understanding of the forces behind Yi Xian. To be honest, if we cooperate sincerely, this time, Yi Xian will definitely die." The Holy Lord looked at the second Tao brother. "What's your senior brother's attitude?" "Senior brother." The second Tao brother shook his head. "His attitude isn't important. What's important is that I represent the entire Tao sect." As he spoke, he looked at the Holy Lord. "Holy Lord, tell me if you want to join forces." Of course, if the sacred land wants to see the Tao sect and Yi Xian fight to the death, it's not impossible. However, if the Tao sect loses, I hope the sacred land will have a good ending." With that, he stood up and left. The Holy Lord did not speak. Just as the second Dao brother was about to leave the hall, the Holy Lord suddenly looked at him. "The sacred land is willing to help." The second Dao brother looked at the Holy Lord. The Holy Lord smiled. "How about this? If the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun appear, the sacred land will help you deal with them. However, we won't care about anything else." After a moment of silence, the second Dao brother said, "All right." The Holy Lord asked, "When do we act?" The second Dao brother glanced at the Holy Lord. "Very soon." With that, he turned around and vanished. After the second Dao brother left, the Holy Lord immediately went to the small bamboo house in the mountain behind the sacred land. At this moment, the mysterious woman was watering the flowers in the garden. The Holy Lord looked at the mysterious woman. "Master, are we really going to act?" The mysterious woman smiled. "What do we act?" The Holy Lord was stunned. "Just now, Master asked me to agree to the second Dao brother's request." The mysterious woman smiled. "If we don't agree, do you think he would dare to start a war against the entire fifth dimension? Even if he wants to, he wouldn't dare because he's afraid that someone else will take advantage of the situation. He'll only be at ease if we agree to his request. After that, he'll go find Yi Xian and fight to the death." The Holy Lord hesitated for a moment before he said, "Can he win?" The mysterious woman said softly, "I'm not asking him to fight. I'm asking Yi Xian to form an irreconcilable enmity with the Daoist sect. As long as Yi Xian forms an irreconcilable enmity with the Daoist sect, it'll be equivalent to forming an irreconcilable enmity with the Daoist sect's ancestor. He obtained the 9 Daoist scriptures, and it was originally a good karma. But now, this good karma is about to turn into a bad karma. How wonderful." As she spoke up to this point, she looked up at the sky and said softly, "That person from the ultimate martial realm should be about to break through as well." P.S. Those who are reading should be voting as well. I'm already prepared. Throw in the votes. Chapter 1463. In the five-dimensional universe. In the starry sky, Yi Xian opened his palm. Thousands of feet away, a ray of sword light appeared and a certain space was torn apart. Insta-kill sword. With the help of this unparalleled sword, his insta-kill sword had reached his limit. The true limit. This was because insta-kill's sword could no longer increase his sword speed. Although it could no longer increase his speed, it could increase his strength and the power of his sword techniques. In other words, other than reaching the limit of his speed, there was still room for improvement in other areas. At this moment, a lady suddenly appeared not far away from Yi Xian. It was Lan Ruo. Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo, a little surprised. "Miss Lan Ruo?" Lan Ruo walked to Yi Xian with a serious expression. "I have bad news for you." Yi Xian said, "Dao faction is going to make a move?" Lan Ruo nodded. "Not just Dao faction. They made use of Dao faction's resources and connections to gather many experts to head to Dao faction. These people are not to be underestimated." Yi Xian asked, "How many?" Lan Ruo glanced at Yi Xian. "Are you sure you want to know?" Yi Xian smiled. "Of course." Lan Ruo said, "The Dao sect itself has at least 460 consolidation realm experts. Now, including the experts from their vassal forces, as well as those who have been tempted by martial arts manuals, there are at least 600 consolidation realm experts in the Dao sect now. Among them, there are many who have no lack of consolidation realm experts." Yi Xian was silent. This lineup was enough to crush the entire five-dimensional universe. Lan Ruo continued, "In addition, second brother Dao has personally gone to the Holy Land. This means that the Holy Land should have agreed to make a move. As for the strength of the Holy Land, we can't find anything." "Can't find anything?" Yi Xian said softly, "Seems like I should be more worried about the Holy Land." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian. How are you going to deal with Dao faction? Yi Xian smiled. We can only fight. Lan Ruo frowned. Fight head-on? Yi Xian said softly, we definitely can't fight them head-on. Lan Ruo asked, call for help? Yi Xian shook his head. Lan Ruo was a little puzzled. Why didn't you call for help? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Because I don't know where they are. Lan Ruo was stunned. Are you sure? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Miss Lan Ruo, do you think I need to lie to you? Lan Ruo said in a low voice, then you're in a rather bad situation now. Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo and smiled. Miss Lan Ruo, thank you for reminding me. Lan Ruo shook his head. It's just a small matter. As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. I don't know what strategy you have, but I want to tell you that if the person behind you doesn't make a move, that door is like a mountain to you, a mountain that you can't overcome. Take care. After saying that, she turned around and disappeared. Where he was, Yi Xian looked at the supreme sword in his hand and chuckled. It's time to taste blood. After saying that, he disappeared. Dao Domain. At this moment, the Dao Domain was unprecedentedly lively because countless consolidation realm experts were rushing over. On this day, a man in black arrived at the Dao Domain. This man in black was naturally Yi Xian. However, at this moment, he was dressed in black and looked completely different from before. He wanted to see how the Dao sect was going to deal with him. The moment Yi Xian entered the Dao Domain, the space in front of him suddenly trembled. The next moment, an old man appeared in front of Yi Xian. The old man looked at Yi Xian. May I know who you are? Yi Xian was about to speak when a voice sounded from the horizon. I didn't expect the young Master Yi of the fifth dimension to personally come to my Dao sect. What a surprise. After saying that, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian. The person who came was Dao Brother Second. And around him, countless experts appeared one after another. All of them were at the consolidation realm. In an instant, Yi Xian was directly surrounded. Yi Xian was silent. I'm off to a bad start. However, he didn't understand how the other party found him. In the sky, Dao Brother Second looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you underestimate my Dao sect. Yi Xian nodded. Indeed, I underestimated you. Dao Brother Second looked at Yi Xian. Everyone, kill this person, and my Dao sect will fulfill its promise to you immediately. Hearing this, the hundreds of consolidation realm experts present all looked at Yi Xian in unison. Why did they come here? Naturally, it was because they wanted to obtain some of the Dao sect's martial arts manuals. Especially the Dao scriptures of the Dao sect. At this moment, someone was about to make a move, but Yi Xian suddenly laughed in the distance. You don't really think that I came alone, do you? Hearing this, those who were about to make a move stopped. They naturally knew about Yi Xian. Now, who didn't know that there was a mysterious force behind Yi Xian? In the sky, Dao Brother Second looked at Yi Xian. Are you trying to scare me? Yi Xian smiled. Dao Brother Second, do you think I would come here to die for nothing? Dao Brother Second looked at Yi Xian with a calm expression. Then what are you doing here? Yi Xian was silent. In fact, he really wanted to directly draw his sword and kill this Dao Brother Second. However, he wasn't completely confident. First of all, Dao Brother Second was an expert who surpassed the consolidation realm. Secondly, Dao Brother Second had also cultivated a Dao physique. That Dao physique was very likely to be able to block his sword strike. At this moment, a middle-aged man not far away suddenly laughed. I think that this young Master Yi is here to die. Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Yi Xian, do you really think that the force behind you can fight against us? You. At this moment, the middle-aged man's voice came to an abrupt halt. His eyes were wide open as he tightly clutched his throat. There was a sword mark on his throat, and blood kept flowing out, instantly dyeing his hands red. At this moment, everyone present was dumbfounded. He was killed. Who killed him? Soon, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, "Everyone, I'm here today to look for the Tao sect. As for the others, please shut up. Because I don't have time to argue with you." Everyone looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, there was fear in their eyes. Yi Xian had just killed a consolidation realm expert. Most importantly, they did not even see how Yi Xian had wielded his sword. The second elder was also a little shocked at this moment. He did not expect Yi Xian to kill a consolidation realm expert with a single sword strike. And it was so easy. What kind of strength does this guy have? At this time, Yi Xian looked at the crowd and said with a smile, "Everyone, I know that Doubting uses some so-called martial arts. The ancient books tempted you to come and kill me, Yi Xian. However, have you ever thought about why the Tao sect would do that? It's very simple, because the Tao sect just wants you to be cannon fodder." Cannon fodder. At this moment, an old man stood out. He looked at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi, do you know how many people we have here?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "A few hundred people." The old man said calmly, "Young Master Yi, as far as I know, there are not even 100 consolidation realm experts in the five-dimensional universe. What do you think?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "You're right. In that case, you can make your move." The old man looked at Yi Xian. He did not speak, nor did he make a move. The consolidation realm experts present did not make a move either. At this moment, they suddenly thought of something. Why was Yi Xian so fearless? It was because of the force behind Yi Xian. Not to mention whether they could kill Yi Xian, even if they did. What would happen after they killed him? Whoever killed Yi Xian would definitely suffer the revenge of that mysterious force. Not to mention, who could defeat the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun? If these two people took revenge, would they be able to survive? Thinking of this, many people glanced at the Tao sect in the distance. They could not stand out in this matter. Seeing that no one made a move, second brother Tao slowly clenched his right hand. He knew that these people were all smart people. If he did not make a move, these people would definitely not stand out. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly raised his right hand and slapped it in front of him. Fen Tianjue. As the palm fell, a wave of flames slanted out from Yi Xian's palm. In an instant, the entire starry sky was shattered. Seeing Yi Xian suddenly make a move, the experts present were shocked. No one had expected Yi Xian to suddenly make a move. The few consolidation realm experts who were closer to Yi Xian were directly blasted into nothingness by Yi Xian's Fen Tianjue, and the other consolidation realm experts were also shaken to the point of retreating. Right at this moment, second brother Dao's voice suddenly resounded. "Where do you think you're going?" As soon as he finished speaking, second brother Dao suddenly stretched his right hand towards the space before him, and then he made a grabbing motion. An enormous hand that could hold up the sky tore through the starry sky over 50,000 kilometers away, and then it grabbed fiercely towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed with his sword. The Dao sword. This strike was swift like a bolt of lightning. Bang! The enormous hand trembled violently before it cracked apart, and Yi Xian was blasted over 100 kilometers away. However, in the next moment, his entire body transformed into a strand of light and vanished. The Dao domain. Second brother Dao's expression was slightly gloomy because he noticed that Yi Xian had vanished. At this moment, he suddenly realized that he had slightly underestimated Yi Xian. He had greatly underestimated Yi Xian. Yi Xian actually possessed the strength to instantly kill consolidation realm experts. Moreover, he had also cultivated the Dao scripture martial arts of the Dao sect to such an extent. Without second brother Dao, the expressions of the consolidation realm experts present were extremely solemn. Yi Xian's strength had greatly exceeded their expectations. Was he really only at the consolidation realm? In the field, it was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. At this moment, the surrounding hundreds of thousands of kilometers of starry sky had turned into a pitch-black spatial black hole. Not only that, but a powerful force was still constantly eroding the origin of the Dao realm. Second brother Dao glanced around and was about to speak when his pupils suddenly shrank. He suddenly turned around, and as he did so, a ray of light from a sword arrived. Second brother Dao clenched his fists tightly, and at this moment, a sword directly pierced between his eyebrows. Chapter 1464. Everyone in the field was shocked. Yi Xian turned around and attacked. This was something no one had expected. Even the Dao's second brother did not expect this. How dare Yi Xian? When Yi Xian's sword pierced half an inch into the Dao's second brother's eyebrows, it could no longer go in. Dao physique. At this critical moment, the Dao's second brother's Dao physique played a life-saving role. Seeing that he could no longer stab in, Yi Xian stomped his right foot and rotated his right hand forward. Boom! The Dao's second brother was instantly thrown thousands of feet away. As for Yi Xian, he turned around and disappeared into the end of the starry sky. His attack failed, and he fled thousands of miles away. In the starry sky, the Dao's second brother slowly closed his eyes. The space between his eyebrows cracked into a spider web. Not only that, but his physical body had also suffered a certain degree of damage. At this moment, the Dao's second brother's expression was extremely ugly. If it were not for his Dao physique, he would have been killed by Yi Xian's sword just now. Even now, he still had lingering fear from that sword strike. Because it was too fast. It was so fast that even he could not react. In the field, the expressions of the consolidation realm experts were extremely solemn. At this moment, their hearts were filled with fear. At this moment, everyone could not help but ask themselves, if Yi Xian's sword was aimed at them, would they be able to block it? The answer was no. Was Yi Xian a killer or a swordsman? At this moment, the Dao's second brother suddenly said, "Everyone, please take a rest." After saying that, he turned around and left. In the field, the consolidation realm experts looked at each other. In fact, at this moment, some of them were already retreating because they realized that Yi Xian did not look so easy to bully. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian stopped and slowly closed his eyes. He had to say that it was a pity. He could have killed the Dao's second brother just now. Dao physique. With his current strength, he still could not cut through the flesh with one sword. There might be a chance if he slashed a few more times. After a while, Yi Xian left. Yi Xian did not return to the fifth dimension but went directly to the boundless sacred land. Boundless holy land. Yi Xian had always been wary of this mysterious force. This time, he wanted to personally investigate this boundless sacred ground. Just as Yi Xian stepped into the Saint Realm, in the bamboo house at the back of the mountain, the woman who was reading an ancient book suddenly raised her head. She turned her head to look outside the bamboo house, and the corners of her lips curled up. Interesting. As she spoke, she lowered her head and continued to read. In the starry sky, Yi Xian did not advance any further. Because he realized that he seemed to have been discovered. This feeling was a little absurd. Yi Xian looked in the direction of the boundless sacred ground. Moments later, he turned around and left. He did not take any more risks. His current strength was not enough for him to take the risk. After Yi Xian left, in the bamboo house in the back mountain of the Holy Land, the mysterious woman smiled, very smart. At this moment, the Holy Master arrived in front of the bamboo house and bowed slightly. "Master, that Yi Xian just went to the Dao sect and then came to our Holy Land. He should have left by now." The woman said, "Ignore him." The Holy Master nodded. Understood. After saying that, he quietly retreated. In the bamboo house, the woman read the ancient book, and as she read, her eyes gradually became cold. Yi Xian arrived at Xian City. As soon as he stepped into Xian City, a man in black suddenly appeared behind him. Yi Xian turned around, and the man in black threw out his right hand. 15 bloody heads appeared in front of Yi Xian. The man in black said, "All of them are Dao Sex Consolidation Realm experts." Yi Xian looked at the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man in front of him was the one who had killed the Taoism powerhouses at the auction. He did not expect that the other party would dare to kill Dao sex experts. Moreover, he had really killed 15 Consolidation Realm experts. At this moment, the man in black suddenly stretched out his right hand. Yi Xian flicked his finger, and a scroll appeared in front of the man in black. It was the 9th Dao scripture. The man in black put away the Dao scripture and turned to leave. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "There's another deal, do you want to do it?" The man in black stopped. "What else do you have?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "What do you think I can give you?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian said again, "Can you really understand the 9th Dao scripture?" The man in black opened the scroll, and a moment later, he asked, "Can you understand it?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I've already had people study the 9th Dao scripture thoroughly. Do you want it?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian said again, "The Whirling sect has had the 9th Dao scripture for so many years, but they still have not fully understood it. Do you think you're better than the Whirling sect?" The man in black said, "What do you want me to do?" Yi Xian said, "Follow me." The man in black shook his head, "No. You're too dangerous. Following you is equivalent to risking my life. It's not worth it." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What if I give you a satisfactory price?" The man in black looked at Yi Xian, "What's the price?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Do you want to go to the 9th dimension?" The 9th dimension. The man in black was stunned. Yi Xian looked at the man in black, "I'm serious." The man in black said in a deep voice, "Are you really from the 9th dimension?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes." The man in black was silent for a moment, then said, "How can I believe you?" Yi Xian flicked his finger, and the supreme sword appeared in front of the man in black. "I brought this out from the 9th dimension, take a look." The man in black hesitated for a moment, then held the sword. The next moment, he suddenly looked up at Yi Xian. "This," Yi Xian smiled and said, "You've never seen such a strange sword, right?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian continued, "You're now at the peak of the consolidation realm. Do you want to reach a higher level? For example, the divine realm?" The man in black looked at Yi Xian. "The force behind you is so strong, why do you still need me?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "I'm the son of the 9th dimension. I came here to gain experience, and, like the emperor of the secular world, do you understand?" The man in black looked at Yi Xian. "Why do I feel like you're bluffing?" Yi Xian said seriously, "I'm a swordsman. And I'm the world's top swordsman. Do you think such a powerful swordsman would lie?" The man in black was silent. Yi Xian continued, 3 years, you follow me for 3 years, after 3 years, I'll help you reach the divine realm, if not." Speaking of this, he looked at the man in black, "What's your surname?" The man in black said, "Yang." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "If I can't help you reach the divine realm, I'll change my surname to yours." The man in black was speechless. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I won't force you. If you don't want to, you can leave." The black-clothed man shook his head. "Following you is too dangerous." With that, he turned to leave. Meanwhile, Yi Xian spoke abruptly, "You killed 15 members of the Daoist sect. They won't let you off." The man in black stopped, and Yi Xian said, "I'm about to summon the spirit of the great Tao. Do you really not want to witness the appearance of the spirit of the great Tao? If you follow me, you will." In order to obtain a detailed explanation of all the Tao scriptures, including the 9th volume. If you were one of us, believe me, you wouldn't be able to understand this 9th scripture. The black-robed man opened the ancient scroll again. After looking at it for a moment, he disappeared. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. He knew that this person would come looking for him again. Because he was absolutely unable to understand the 9th scripture. If not for Nian Nian, even he and Yi Jiming would not have been able to understand the ninth scripture. Yi Xian turned and left. He went to Xian City and found Lan Ruo. In a garden somewhere, two people were walking side by side. Lan Ruo said softly, "I've underestimated you." Obviously, she already knew what Yi Xian had done in the Dao domain. To be honest, she was also a little shocked. Yi Xian had instantly killed a Consolidation Realm powerhouse, and he had almost killed Dao Lao heir. If second brother Dao didn't have a Dao physique, he would definitely be dead. One had to know that Yi Xian had a sword that specifically targeted souls. As long as he became a soul, his combat strength would drop by several levels in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Lan Ruo and said with a smile, "Miss Lan Ruo, to be honest, I've come to you this time to ask for your help." Lan Ruo glanced at Yi Xian and said, "Speak." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Are there any assassins in Xian City?" Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "Yes." Yi Xian said, "The mental cultivation methods and martial arts of the Dao realm from the 1st to the 9th volume of the Dao scriptures." Lan Ruo fell silent. She was very tempted. No force would not be tempted by the Dao scriptures, mental cultivation methods, and martial arts of the Dao sections. However, she was still a little hesitant. If she agreed to Yi Xian's request, it would be equivalent to taking a risk with Xian City. As if he knew what Lan Ruo was thinking, Yi Xian asked again, "Does the Dao sects know about these people in Xian City?" Lan Ruo shook her head. "They're some of Xian City's trump cards." Yi Xian smiled and said, "How about this? Let's say that these people were trained by the force behind me." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "It's far from enough to deal with the Dao sects." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I know." Lan Ruo was silent for a moment before she clapped her hands lightly. The next moment, 10 shadows suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian silently. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned solemn. These 10 people had appeared without any warning. At this moment, he realized that he had underestimated these ancient forces. The foundations of these forces were extraordinarily deep. Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "These 10 people are very proficient in assassination and tracking. Now, they will listen to your orders." Yi Xian opened his palm and 9 scrolls appeared in his hand. He passed the scrolls to Lan Ruo and said, 9 scrolls of Dao scriptures, mental cultivation methods, and martial arts of the Dao world." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "You're making a loss." Yi Xian smiled and said, "We're friends. Why are we being so calculative?" Lan Ruo hesitated for a moment before she clapped her hands lightly again. At this moment, another 10 men in black appeared behind Yi Xian. 20 super experts. They were all assassins. Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian and said, "They're all yours." Yi Xian said softly, "Thank you." Lan Ruo smiled and said, "At the end of the day, you're the one who's making a loss." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Lan Ruo, I'm going to do something big. So, we'll meet again." With that, he turned around and left with the 20 men. Lan Ruo suddenly said, "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian turned to look at Lan Ruo. Lan Ruo smiled and said, "We'll meet again." Yi Xian smiled and said, "All right." With that, he disappeared with the 20 super assassins. Chapter 1465. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian looked at the 20 people in front of him. These 20 people were all at the peak of the consolidation realm, and they were extremely good at concealment and assassination. 20 people was not a lot, but it would be different if there were 20 assassins. Yi Xian turned and looked in the direction of the Dao domain. He did not want to sit still and wait for death. A moment later, Yi Xian disappeared with the 20 people. Dao sect. In a certain hall, Dao brother second sat cross-legged on the ground, his body emitting a dark green luster. Healing. Although Yi Xian's sword had not killed him, it had caused considerable damage to his Dao body. As if thinking of something, he suddenly opened his eyes, passed down the order, Yi Xian already has the strength to easily kill a consolidation realm expert. Let all Dao sect disciples be careful. Outside the hall, a voice sounded, yes. Inside the hall, Dao Brother Second slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, he felt more and more uneasy. Yi Xian's strength was far beyond his expectations. Now, Yi Xian was only at the Dao attainment realm, but he already had the strength to hurt him. One had to know that there was a difference of 2 realms between him and Yi Xian. Not to mention the half-step divine realm, there was a world of difference between the Dao attainment realm and the consolidation realm. And now, Yi Xian could surpass 2 realms. How terrifying was this? Could this guy really be from the 9th dimension? Naturally, he did not believe the nonsense that Yi Xian said. The 9th dimension? If there really was such a place, the Dao sect's patriarch would have definitely mentioned it back then, but the Dao sect's patriarch had never mentioned this place. Moreover, Yi Xian loved to fool people the most, so how could he believe what he said? At this moment, Dao Brother Fourth walked into the hall. At this moment, his physical body had already recovered. Dao Brother Fourth said softly, "We can't delay any longer." Dao Brother Second was silent. Not long ago, Yi Xian had a hard time killing a Dao attainment realm cultivator, but now, he can easily kill a consolidation realm cultivator. His growth speed is too terrifying. If this continues, it won't be long before he can easily kill a half-step divine stage expert or even a divine stage expert. The second Dao brother said, "We must deal with 2 people right now, the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun." The 4th elder said in a low voice, "Not only these 2, but also Yi Ling and the woman in the plain dress. Neither of them are simple." The 2nd elder was silent. A moment later, he opened his eyes and looked at the statue in front of him with a complicated expression. If Master was still here, who in this world would dare to bully the Taoist faction? The 4th Taoist fell silent. Master. When the patriarch of the Dao sect was still around, who dared to disrespect the Dao sect? Who dared to disrespect the Dao sect? Who in the world would dare to go against the words of the Dao sect? But now, at this time, 4th Taoist sighed in a low voice, "It's our incompetence." The 2nd Taoist said softly, "Indeed." The 4th Taoist said, "Because of what happened to Yi Xian, many people have the intention to retreat. So, we can't delay any longer. Didn't the sacred ground agree to let them deal with the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun? If that's the case, then it'll be easy." The 2nd Taoist fell silent. The 4th Taoist asked, "Are you still worried about Yi Ling and the woman in the plain dress?" The 2nd Taoist nodded, "Not just those 2. I'm afraid that there are others behind him. The strength of these people." The 4th Taoist looked at the 2nd Taoist, "You're regretting it." The 2nd Taoist said softly, "Indeed. My intuition tells me that we might be walking on a path of no return." The 4th Taoist chuckled, "Second senior brother, have you ever thought about what will happen if Yi Xian summons the Grand Dao Spirit? When he summons the spirit of the Great Dao, will you and I have to bow down to him?" The 2nd Taoist fell silent. The Grand Dao Spirit. The reason why the Dao sect still had no master was because the Dao sect's ancestor had once said that the person who possessed the Grand Dao Spirit would be the next master of the Dao sect. Back then, the Dao sect had internal strife in order to fight for the complete version of the Dao scripture. It was also because of the internal strife that the Dao scripture was divided into 9 parts and scattered across the heavens. It was also because of that internal strife that the Dao sect's strength had declined greatly. At this moment, the 4th Taoist suddenly said, "We have no way out. We can only kill Yi Xian at all costs, obtain the Dao scripture, and then summon the Grand Dao Spirit." The 2nd Taoist nodded, "Indeed, there is no way out." Now that they had become enemies with Yi Xian, it could be said that either Yi Xian died or the Dao sect died. There was no other way. They could only kill Yi Xian. With that thought, the 2nd Taoist stood up, "Gather everyone." The 4th Taoist stood up and left. Not long after, all the experts in the Dao sect rushed toward the starry sky. In less than 15 minutes, there were more than 600 consolidation realm experts gathered in the starry sky of the Tao sect. Needless to say, this lineup was extremely terrifying. More than 600 consolidation realm experts, it could be said that at least half of the consolidation realm experts in the world were here. Although the Tao sect was not as strong as it used to be, it still had the ability to rally people. In the hall, the second Taoist stood up and left. He came to a starry sky, and not far in front of him was the holy leader of the boundless sacred land. The second Taoist looked at the holy leader. If those two women appear, can the sacred land handle them? The holy leader smiled, yes. The second Taoist nodded, that's good. The holy leader suddenly said, if we kill Yi Xian, the sacred land wants a complete version of the Tao scripture. The second Taoist smiled, no problem. The holy leader said, including the mental cultivation method and the Tao scripture martial arts. The second Taoist looked at the holy leader, no problem. The holy leader nodded, go. If those two women appear, the sacred land will stand up to them. With that, he turned and disappeared into the horizon. In the field, the second Taoist looked much more relaxed. With the help of the sacred land, he had more confidence in killing Yi Xian this time. Soon, the second Taoist and the fourth Taoist led all the experts to the fifth dimension. The two of them did not want to wait any longer. This time, the Tao sect really came out in full force. Obviously, the Tao sect wanted to fight to the death. Not long after the second Taoist and the others left the Tao domain, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in the Tao domain. He had been hiding in the dark for a long time, and only appeared when he saw the second Taoist and the others leaving the Tao domain. He naturally would not fight with the second Taoist and the others now. Yi Xian looked around. He had to say that the Tao domain was very cold, because all the top experts of the Tao sect had gone to the fifth dimension. Yi Xian walked down, and at this moment, an angry shout suddenly sounded from afar, who are you? Yi Xian casually waved his sword, and a head flew hundreds of meters away. At the same time, 20 black-clothed men suddenly appeared silently in the surroundings, and it wasn't long before numerous shrill cries resounded incessantly. Yi Xian slowly walked to the front of a large hall, and there was a statue in front of the hall. The statue of the Tao sect's ancestor. Yi Xian glanced at the statue, and then walked toward the Tao palace. The Tao palace was very cold, and there was not a single person. Yi Xian smiled, and he opened his palm, and the 9 Tao scriptures appeared in his hand. He glanced at the 9 Tao scriptures and said with a smile, let's see if you guys panic. With that, he slowly closed his eyes, and in front of him, the 9 Tao scriptures suddenly trembled. Fusion. The moment all the Tao scriptures trembled, a mysterious aura suddenly rose from the Tao sect, and went straight into the depths of the starry sky. Tao scriptures fusion. On the other side, the second Taoist and the others were rushing to the starry sky of the fifth dimension. At this moment, a voice sounded in his mind. The second Taoist frowned. The fourth Taoist asked, Yi Xian went to our Tao domain? The second Taoist nodded. The fourth Taoist frowned slightly. Are we going back? The second Taoist shook his head. No, he will return to the fifth dimension by himself. Because he is more anxious than us. The fourth Taoist nodded. Everyone continued forward. Not long after, the second Taoist stopped again, and a moment later, his pupils suddenly shrank. He is fusing the Tao scriptures, and he wants to summon the great Tao spirit back to the Tao domain. With that, he directly turned and left. The fourth Taoist was stunned, and he immediately turned and left. Summon the great Tao spirit. Yi Xian wants to summon the great Tao spirit in the Tao domain? Seeing the second Taoist and the fourth Taoist rush back, many people present were dumbfounded. Not going to the fifth dimension? A moment later, everyone hurriedly followed. The second Taoist and the others rushed back to the Tao domain at their fastest speed. When they rushed back to the Tao domain, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. The second Taoist stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and his face was terrifyingly gloomy. Yi Xian smiled and said, I didn't expect that you would really come back. The second Taoist slowly clenched his right hand. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Second Taoist, if you attack, I will immediately fuse the Tao scriptures and summon the great Tao spirit. The second Taoist narrowed his eyes slightly. Are you threatening me? Yi Xian smiled and said, Yes, I am. The second Taoist stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and he slowly clenched his right hand. Summon the great Tao spirit. If Yi Xian really summoned the great Tao spirit, and the great Tao spirit helped Yi Xian, at that time, they would be in a very awkward situation. After all, the patriarch of the Tao faction had said that the person who obtained the recognition of the great Tao spirit would be the master of the Tao faction. If Yi Xian obtained the recognition of the great Tao spirit, then if he continued to kill Yi Xian, it would be equivalent to going against the will of the patriarch of the Tao faction, and many people within the Tao faction would probably rebel against him. After all, many people in the Tao faction respected the words of the Tao faction's patriarch like a god. At this moment, the fourth Taoist suddenly said, Yi Xian, fuse with it. The second Taoist looked at the fourth Taoist, and the fourth Taoist smiled and said, Let him fuse with it. The second Taoist hesitated to speak. Meanwhile, the fourth Taoist sent a voice transmission to the second Taoist. Will the great Tao spirit recognize him after he fuses with it? The second Taoist was stunned. Right. Will the great Tao spirit recognize Yi Xian as its master? Of course not. Because after the patriarch of the Tao faction passed away, the great Tao spirit didn't submit to anyone. Otherwise, the Tao faction wouldn't be without a leader now. At the thought of this, the second Taoist looked at Yi Xian and said, Yi Xian, fuse with it. Yi Xian fell silent, and he was slightly afraid. Would the great Tao spirit do him in? After all, the great Tao spirit belongs to the Tao faction. If it summoned a father, then it would be a pain in the ass. P.S. Give me a monthly ticket, and I will take you to the 9th dimension to play. Those who write books never lie. Chapter 1466. It was fusing with the spirit of the Grand Tao. Actually, he was quite fearful as well. Because he still remembered what Master Qin had said. The spirit of the Grand Tao wasn't a benevolent fellow. He was able to discern that the Tao sect was very fearful of the spirit of the Grand Tao. However, if the spirit of the Grand Tao refused to acknowledge him or even stood on the Tao sect side, then it would be a huge pain in the ass. Meanwhile, second brother suddenly laughed coldly. Yi Xian, what are you waiting for? Yi Xian gazed at second brother and smiled, as you wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly pressed his palms together, and the Tao scripture was instantly activated by his strength to fuse the 9 scriptures into one. Bang! At the instant the 9 scriptures fused into one, an invisible force surged out from Yi Xian, and it instantly caused ripples to arise in the space around him. The expressions of fourth brother and the others gradually became solemn. The spirit of the Grand Tao was the spirit of the Tao scripture, and it was the existence that had followed the ancestor of the Tao sect for the longest time. Moreover, the status of the Tao scripture in the Tao sect was merely inferior to the ancestor. If the spirit of the Grand Tao stood on Yi Xian's side, then it would be extremely disadvantageous to the Tao sect. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian. The Tao scripture in Yi Xian's hand gradually emanated a ray of white light, and then it floated up into the sky. Yi Xian gazed at the white light in the sky, and a shadow was gradually condensing within it. The spirit of the Grand Tao. Not far away, the expressions of countless experts from the Tao sect became excited. It was the spirit of the Grand Tao. After the ancestor of the Tao sect left, the spirit of the Grand Tao had become the symbol of the Tao sect. Unfortunately, internal strife had caused the Tao scripture to be split into 9, and the spirit of the Grand Tao had fallen into deep slumber. Yet now, the spirit of the Grand Tao was finally about to appear. Right at this moment, the Tao scripture in front of Yi Xian suddenly started burning. Yi Xian was stunned. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. What's going on? Yi Xian grabbed at the burning Tao scripture with his right hand. However, a powerful force sent him flying thousands of feet away. Yi Xian was shocked. He looked at the Tao scripture again. At this time, the complete Tao scripture directly transformed into a flame and disappeared into the end of the starry sky. Gone. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. That's it? Fourth Tao brother and second Tao brother looked at each other with a trace of doubt in their eyes. What was going on? Yi Xian was also a little confused at this moment. That's it? Where was the spirit of the great Tao? As if he had thought of something, he looked at the Tao's second brother in the distance. In the next moment, he turned and ran. His speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon of the starry sky. Seeing that Yi Xian was running away, second elder Tao said fiercely, "Chase him." As soon as he finished speaking, he was the first to rush out. At this moment, he had no time to care about the Tao scripture. The most important thing was to deal with Yi Xian first. In the starry sky, Yi Xian ran all the way. Behind him, there were nearly 700 consolidation realm experts. This time, the Tao sect was really going to risk their lives with him. At this moment, second Tao brother suddenly stopped. He looked at the sword light at the end of the starry sky in the distance. Let's go to the fifth dimension. After saying that, he turned and left. Chasing after Yi Xian like this was too much of a waste of time. If they went directly to the fifth dimension, Yi Xian would definitely return to the fifth dimension. Soon, second Tao brother and the others went straight to the fifth dimension. In the distant starry sky, Yi Xian stopped. He looked in the direction where second Tao brother and the others left. It was the direction of the fifth dimension. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a voice transmission talisman suddenly disappeared. After a moment, the space in front of him gradually trembled, and a voice came out. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned and disappeared into the distance. In the fifth dimension. Inside the sword hall. Knowing Destiny sat cross-legged on the ground. In front of her, there were 9 scrolls. They were the 9 scrolls of the Tao scripture. However, these 9 scrolls were all copied and not the real thing. In front of Yi Jiming was Nian Nian. Nian Nian held a fish in her left hand and a stick of tanghulu in her right. She would occasionally lick the fish, and then the tanghulu. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian. Nian Nian looked at Yi Jiming. Sister Jiming, what's wrong? Yi Jiming smiled. Nian Nian, tell me honestly. Have you recovered your memories? Nian Nian blinked. Recovered my memories? Yi Jiming nodded. Nian Nian shook her head. No. I can't remember a lot of things. Yi Jiming was silent. Nian Nian didn't look like she was lying. However, her intuition told her that Nian Nian was becoming more and more different. At this moment, Nian Nian suddenly raised her head. The next moment, she looked at Yi Jiming and smiled. Sister Jiming, I'm going to play. After saying that, she got up and left. In the hall, Yi Jiming frowned. She chased after her, but Nian Nian was already gone. Gone. Yi Jiming was stunned. In the sky above Dao City, a woman in a dark green dress stood quietly in the clouds. Behind her was the holy leader. At this moment, the woman suddenly turned her head. Not far away, the clouds parted and a woman slowly walked over. It was Nian Nian. The woman looked at Nian Nian and smiled. Nian Nian walked to the woman's side. Neither of them said a word and just stood there quietly. At this moment, at the end of the starry sky, a powerful aura swept over. The experts of the Tao sect had arrived. Nian Nian licked the candied hawthorn but still did not say a word. The woman glanced at the candied hawthorn in Nian Nian's hand and smiled. Candied hawthorn. There's a little white guy who especially likes to eat candied hawthorn. There's also that little girl. Both of them really like to eat candied hawthorn. Nian Nian continued to lick the candied hawthorn without saying a word. The woman smiled. Are you afraid that I'll attack, so you came to watch me? Nian Nian glanced at the woman. Do you dare to attack? The woman shook her head. I don't dare. As she said that, she looked at Nian Nian and smiled. You don't dare either. Nian Nian shrugged and continued to lick the candied hawthorn. The woman did not say anything else. She looked into the distance. At this moment, second brother Dao and the others had already entered the starry sky of the fifth dimension. It had to be said that the difference in strength between the fifth dimension and the Dao sect was huge. Below Dao's city, Bai Dizzy looked at second brother Dao and the others in the sky with a calm expression. He had already expected this day. Behind him were Li Shanshui and the others. They were all super experts from the whirling world. Li Shanshui looked at second brother Dao and the others in the sky with a calm expression. In fact, he was not panicking at all. Why? Those who had not come into contact with the white-robed woman would not know how terrifying she was. Back then, didn't the Xuanhuan sect think that they could defeat Yi Xian just like the current Dao sect? But in the end, not only was Li Shanshui not panicking, but the experts from the whirling world were also very calm. In fact, they were a little uneasy at the beginning because there were too many experts. But as long as they thought of the two women, they would calm down. Those were two immortals. In the sky. Second brother Dao looked down. Compared to the Dao sect, the strength of the fifth dimension was indeed very weak, but he did not dare to underestimate them. At this moment, a man suddenly appeared not far in front of second brother Dao and the others. The person who had come was Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian, Bai Dizzy's expression relaxed slightly. He was not afraid that Yi Xian would run away, but mainly because he felt more at ease with this guy here. Second brother Dao looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, where are your people? Yi Xian smiled. He did not answer second brother Dao, but turned to look at the consolidation realm experts in the field. Everyone, I know that many of you are not from the Dao sect, but because you want to get some benefits, you came to kill me, Yi Xian. I have no grievances with any of you. If you leave now, nothing will happen to me. In the field, the consolidation realm experts looked at Yi Xian without saying a word, and no one left. Now that the Dao sect had an overwhelming advantage, and the benefits were at their fingertips, why would they leave? Seeing that no one left, Yi Xian smiled, then looked at second brother Dao. Second brother, do you want to fight one-on-one? Second brother. The expressions of everyone in the field became a little strange. Second brother Dao looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, I will not give you any chance. Since your people will not appear, then you and your fifth dimension will die together. As his voice fell, he suddenly said, attack. As soon as the words fell, more than 20 shadows suddenly rushed straight down from the sky. All of them were experts at the peak of the consolidation realm, and their auras were infinitely close to the half-step divine realm. Dao guards. These were 20 people carefully cultivated by the Dao sect, and their strength far exceeded that of ordinary consolidation realm experts. The target of these 20 people was Yi Xian. Fourth brother Dao and second brother Dao did not make a move. They were waiting to fight whoever saved Yi Xian. Below, Yi Xian's expression was calm. At this moment, Li Shanshui suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Li Shanshui, and Li Shanshui smiled awkwardly. Young Master Yi, let my Xuanhuan sect perform. Yi Xian asked, are you sure? Li Shanshui said seriously, of course. Yi Xian nodded and made an inviting gesture. Li Shanshui raised his head and looked at the 20 people rushing down with a calm expression. He opened his palm, and a black wooden seal suddenly flew out from his palm. Ancestor summon. Ancestor summon. On the side, Yi Xian's expression became a little strange. In the past, it was others who summoned their ancestor to beat him, but this was the first time someone summoned their ancestor to protect him. In fact, Li Shanshui's heart was also a little complicated. This could be said to be the Xuanhuan sect's last life-saving trump card. Previously, he wanted to use it on the white-robed woman, but he was not sure at that time. After seeing the miserable state of the Xuanhuan sect after summoning their ancestor, he was even more glad that he did not summon their ancestor. The reason why he summoned their ancestor now was to show off. Otherwise, the Xuanhuan sect would not have a sense of existence in the fifth dimension. As Li Shanshui's voice fell, a black light suddenly shot up from the black wooden seal into the sky. Boom! A powerful aura directly forced the 20 people from the Dao sect to stop in place. Then, a middle-aged man in a black robe appeared in the sky. The Xuanhuan sect's patriarch. Seeing the Xuanhuan sect's patriarch, second brother Dao frowned. It was just a split soul. However, this middle-aged man was once an expert at the peak of the god state. At this moment, the current patriarch of the Shao clan, Shao Kwa, suddenly roared, "Ancestor summon." As his voice fell, he directly threw out a black chess piece, which turned into a black light and shot into the sky. At the same time, the current dean of the Dao returning courtyard, Chiu Min, suddenly said, "Ancestor, please." As his voice fell, a white light shot up into the sky. On the other side, Xuanji sect master Gu Wuchao was a little embarrassed. In the past, the Xuanji sect had already summoned their ancestor once. Now, they could not summon it. What should they do? They could not lose face. They had to put in some effort, right? Gu Wuchao seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly pointed at second brother Dao and roared, "Second brother Dao, I'll screw your ancestor." Everyone. Chapter 1467. Hearing Gu Wuchao's words, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. This guy was actually cursing. In the field, some experts also looked at Gu Wuchao with strange expressions. After all, this guy was still a consolidation realm expert. How could he curse like this? At this moment, Gu Wuchao suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side, bowed slightly, and then respectfully retreated behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian, in the field, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Obviously, this was Yi Xian's instigation. In the sky, the second Dao master's gaze also fell on Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, you don't have the demeanor of an expert at all." Yi Xian turned his head and glanced at Gu Wuchao. Gu Wuchao smiled awkwardly. "I live and die with the five-dimensional universe." Yi Xian was speechless. He looked up at the sky. At this time, there were 3 super experts in the sky. They were the black-robed middle-aged man from the Xuanhao sect, the ancestor of the Shao clan, and the ancestor of the Dao returning academy. The ancestor of the Shao clan was an old man in a gray robe. His eyes were like knives, giving off a strong sense of oppression. The ancestor of the Dao returning academy wore a brown robe. His long hair draped over his shoulders, and he held a black ancient book in his hand. The ancestors of 3 super forces. When the 3 appeared, the expressions of the second Dao master and the others gradually became solemn. The whirling world was not a low-level world. In this world, there were also many amazing experts. Just these 3 people in front of them were at least in the God realm, and they were definitely not ordinary God realm experts. They were even above the God realm. Although this kind of existence could not compare to the ancestor of the Dao sect, this kind of existence belonged to the top of this world. They could not be underestimated. In the sky, the Xuanhao sect's ancestor looked around. Finally, he looked at the sect master of the Xuanhao sect, Li Shanshui. Li Shanshui hurriedly bowed respectfully. The Xuanhao sect's ancestor said, "This is not the whirling world." Li Shanshui said respectfully, "Ancestor, the Xuanhao sect will advance and retreat with young Master Yi." Advance and retreat together. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect looked at Yi Xian. Him? Li Shanshui quickly nodded. The gazes of the desolate clan's ancestor and the Dao returnant's courtyard's ancestor descended onto Yi Xian. Yi Xian cupped his fists at the patriarch of Xuanhao sect. The old ancestor of the Xuanhao sect looked at Yi Xian. Gradually, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. "Your bloodline." Yi Xian opened his palm, and the blood in his body began to tremble. When the power of Yi Xian's bloodline emerged, the surprise in the eyes of the patriarch of Xuanao sect gradually turned into shock. On the other side, the patriarch of the Shao clan and the patriarch of the Dao Returning Academy were also shocked. The same was true for the surrounding consolidation realm experts. In fact, Yi Xian's bloodline power had always been growing. His current bloodline power was many times stronger than before. As for why it kept growing, Yi Xian was not particularly clear. According to his guess, it might have something to do with madness. The crazier one was, the stronger the bloodline power. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect looked at Yi Xian. He's indeed not simple. As he spoke, he looked at Li Shanshui. You bet the future of the Xianxian sect on him? Li Shanshui nodded. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect asked, no regrets? Li Shanshui shook his head. No regrets. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect nodded slightly. Just as he was about to speak, the second brother suddenly said, Sir, we are from the Dao sect. The Dao sect. Hearing this, the patriarch of the Xianxian sect looked at the second brother and said with a smile, Dao sect. Are you threatening me? The second brother was expressionless. I just want to remind you that this matter has nothing to do with the Xianxian sect. Why do you want your descendants to be involved in this struggle? If you let your descendants leave now, the Dao sect will let bygones be bygones. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect shook his head and smiled. May I ask, are you in charge of the Dao sect now? The second brother said, yes. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect shook his head. The Dao sect's patriarch is also a senior I respect, but why is the disciple he chose so stupid? The second brother looked at the patriarch of the Xianxian sect with a calm expression. It seems that you are determined to make the Xianxian sect an enemy of the Dao sect. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect said with a smile, just now, my descendant told me that this young Master Yi has gathered all 9 Dao scriptures, so your Dao sect wants to kill him, right? The second brother said calmly, so what? Idiot. The smile on the patriarch of the Xianxian sect's face disappeared. I can tell at a glance that you are an idiot, but I didn't expect you to be this stupid. Everyone was speechless. The second brother narrowed his eyes and slowly clenched his right hand. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect said, what kind of person is the Dao sect's patriarch? He left behind the Dao scriptures, but the great Dao spirit doesn't recognize you as its master. Have you ever thought about why? And these 9 Dao scriptures have fallen into the hands of this young Master Yi. Have you ever thought about why? The second brother was silent. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect continued, this young Master Yi has the legendary cause of misfortune, but he is able to live until now. What does this prove? It proves that someone is forcibly resisting the cause of misfortune for him. In my opinion, someone who can do this will not lose to your Dao sect's patriarch. And your Dao sect's 9 Dao scriptures have fallen into the hands of young Master Yi. Don't you think this may also be an arrangement of your Dao sect's patriarch? The second brother said in a deep voice, absolutely impossible. Master will never choose him. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect chuckled. Could he have chosen you? The second brother stared at the patriarch of the Xianxian sect. Master will never choose him. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect smiled. Second brother, you are the disciple of the Dao sect's patriarch. Why are you so bad? Look at you now. There is only hatred in your eyes and no reason. You have cultivated to this level. Logically speaking, your temperament should not be bad, but why are you blinded by hatred now? The second brother was expressionless. Are you teaching me how to be a person? The patriarch of the Xianxian sect laughed. Teach you how to be a person? Second brother, to say that you are stupid is an insult to the word stupid. The reason why I'm talking so much nonsense with you is that what I learned is also derived from the Dao scriptures. The Dao sect's patriarch is someone I respect. I don't want the Dao sect he established to be destroyed by you. I just didn't expect your temperament to be so bad. A person like you leading the Dao sect is not only the sorrow of the Dao sect, but also the sorrow of the Dao sect's patriarch. At this moment, the fourth brother of the Tao sect suddenly laughed. The reason why you said this is because you think our Tao sect is inferior to young Master Yi, right? The patriarch of the Xianxian sect looked at the fourth brother of the Tao sect and said with a smile, "It seems that you still don't understand what the cause of misfortune is. No, I should say that you have become arrogant. However, it's very sad that you don't have the strength to be arrogant, but you think you have the strength. Why? Because you think you are the disciples of the Tao sect's patriarch, but you have never thought that the reason why the Tao sect is strong is not because of you, but because of the Tao sect's patriarch. There is a difference between a Tao sect with the Tao sect's patriarch and a Tao sect without him. Understand?" The fourth Taoist smiled and said, "Would like to know if your strength is as sharp as your mouth." The patriarch of the Xianxian sect roared with laughter, and then he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, the fourth brother's expression changed abruptly, and he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble. Along with a shocking explosion, the fourth brother of the Tao sect retreated explosively, and he retreated thousands of meters into the starry sky. The expressions of everyone here changed. "He's so strong?" Yi Xian was quite shocked as well. Even though the patriarch of the Tao sect was only a wisp of his soul, he was actually so strong. In the distance, the second brother of the Tao sect stared fixedly at the patriarch of the Xianxian sect, and he was quite shocked as well. A wisp of the soul of a god-rank realm expert was actually so strong. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect gazed at the fourth brother in the distance and said with a smile, "Looks like it's always the fist that's stronger in any era." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot once more. The pupils of the fourth brother of the Tao sect suddenly constricted, and he swiftly raised his arms. A fist seal arrived. Bang! The fourth brother of the Tao sect was instantly blasted away, and he flew for thousands of meters. Not only that, but his body even split apart. His current body wasn't a Tao physique any longer because his Tao physique had been shattered by Yi Ling. So, his current body was extremely weak. The patriarch of the Xianxian sect gazed at the fourth brother of the Tao sect and said with a smile, "I've noticed that you can't reason with some people because if you do, they'll look at you like an idiot." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot once more. Right at this moment, the second brother of the Tao sect suddenly vanished on the spot. Rumble. The space in the sky suddenly collapsed, and then a figure retreated explosively for over 1 kilometer. It was the second brother of the Tao sect. After he stopped moving, he gazed at the patriarch of the Xianxian sect. "From today onward, the Xianxian sect will cease to exist in this world." The patriarch of the Xianxian sect roared with laughter, "A little second brother of the Tao sect is laughable. You're being used as a pawn by others, yet you don't even realize it. How laughable." The second brother frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The patriarch of the Xianxian sect blinked. "I'm not telling you. You idiot." Ha. After saying that, he turned to look at Yi Xian below. "Young Master Yi, I've sent a wisp of my soul to help you today. I hope that young Master Yi will treat the Xianxian sect well in the future. The Xianxian sect doesn't seek to be invincible in the world, but to be passed down from generation to generation." Yi Xian bowed slightly. "I, Yi Xian, will forever remember the kindness of the Xianxian sect." The patriarch of the Xianxian sect smiled and said, "With young Master Ye's words, I'm relieved." After saying that, he glanced at the clouds somewhere. "Young Master Yi, remember, not all of your enemies are as stupid as this second brother." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned and rushed toward the second brother of the Tao sect. Seeing the patriarch of the Xianxian sect rushing over, the second brother's face became ferocious. "Kill. If Yi Xian is destroyed today, you can take anything in the fifth dimension and the whirling world." After saying that, he rushed over. The rest of the consolidation realm experts from the Tao sects also rushed over. However, some of the consolidation realm experts who did not belong to the Tao sects were a little hesitant. But there were also some who directly rushed over. Below, the ancestor of the Shao clan and the ancestor of the Tao returning academy looked at each other. The ancestor of the Shao clan turned to look at Yi Xian, what do you think? The ancestor of the Tao Returning Academy smiled and said, I was hesitating just now. After all, it's the Tao sex, but now it seems, the person in charge of the Tao sex is too stupid. If we help this kind of person, I'm afraid our Tao Returning Academy will be doomed. So, let's choose this young Master Yi. After saying that, he rushed out. The ancestor of the Shao clan smiled and said, why did the Tao sex choose such an idiot to be in charge? This IQ is worse than the pigs I raised back then. After saying that, he also rushed out. On the other side, in the clouds, the mysterious woman beside Nian Nian smiled and said, the sect master of the Xianxian sect has discovered us. Interesting. Nian Nian licked the Tonghulu and did not speak. The mysterious woman looked at Nian Nian, do you want to kill me? Nian Nian nodded. The mysterious woman gently stroked the hair beside her ear with her jade-like hand and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly, no one can kill me under 3 strikes. Nian Nian licked the Tonghulu. Can you take 1 strike from the plain-dressed woman? The mysterious woman's smile gradually disappeared. After a moment, she looked at Nian Nian, if you continue to chat like this, I won't be chatting with you anymore. P.S. After I update the first chapter, I will be disconnected from the internet when I update the second chapter. Chapter 1468. In the sky above Dao City, a great battle had begun. Although the 5th dimension was at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, with the addition of the Xianyao sect's patriarch, the Shao clan's patriarch, and the Dao Return Courtyard's patriarch, the situation was instantly different. The Xianyao sect's patriarch was holding off Dao Lao Air and Dao Lao Si by himself, while the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao Return Courtyard's patriarch were directly suppressing nearly 200 consolidation realm experts. Although it was only a wisp of their soul, the difference between these consolidation realm experts and them was too great. However, as they made their moves, their wisps of soul became more and more illusory. Below, Bai Dizzy suddenly said, make your move. As his voice fell, all the consolidation realm experts of the 5th dimension soared into the sky. As the experts of the 5th dimension made their move, 20 black-clothed men suddenly rushed into the crowd of Dao sect experts. Then, bloody heads flew into the sky. Assassins. These 20 people were the 20 super assassins that Yi Xian had borrowed from Xian City. Yi Xian did not make a move. His eyes were fixed on Dao Lao Air. At this time, Dao Lao Air and Dao Lao Si were being suppressed by the Xianyao sect's patriarch. Dao Lao Air did not focus all his energy on the Xianyao sect's patriarch. He had been guarding against Yi Xian. He had not forgotten Yi Xian's sword. That sword had almost killed him in an instant. Therefore, until now, he had been distracted by guarding against Yi Xian to ensure that when Yi Xian made his move, he would be the first to react. However, Yi Xian did not make a move. Instead, he just looked at him, which put a great deal of pressure on him. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Second brother, I'm going to make my move. He was going to make his move. Dao Lao Air, who was fighting with the Xianyao sect's patriarch, suddenly changed his expression. He glanced at Yi Xian, who was looking at him with a smile. Dao Lao Air did not dare to be too distracted. He withdrew his gaze because the Xianyao sect's patriarch in front of him was very powerful. Just as second brother Dao withdrew his gaze, Yi Xian suddenly said, Second brother Dao, I'm really going to make a move. Second elder Dao suddenly turned his head to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian blinked and said, Don't worry, I'm about to make my move. Yi Xian, the second Daoist said fiercely. Yi Xian grinned. Come and hit me. Just as the second elder was about to speak, a shadow suddenly rushed in front of him. Second elder Dao's pupils suddenly shrank, and his arms suddenly moved forward to block. Boom! The second Daoist was sent flying thousands of feet away. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Sensing this, the second elder's pupils suddenly shrank. He waved his right hand, and a black round shield appeared in front of him. This black round shield was specially kept for Yi Xian. However, he quickly noticed that the target of Yi Xian's attack wasn't him. It was Fourth Elder Dao. When he noticed this, Second Elder Dao suddenly turned his head to look at Fourth Elder Dao, who was not far away. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Little, before his voice died away, swoosh. A ray of sword light suddenly pierced through Fourth Elder Dao's eyebrows. Without his Taoist body, Fourth Elder Dao's eyebrows were directly pierced by Yi Xian's sword. Fourth Elder Dao's body froze in the air. His eyes were wide open and full of disbelief. He didn't expect that Yi Xian's target wasn't Fourth Elder Dao, but him. Of course, he didn't expect that the sword would be so fast that he didn't even have time to react. In front of Fourth Elder Dao, Yi Xian held the sword in his right hand and pulled it out little by little. Between Fourth Elder Dao's eyebrows, blood spurted out. Second Elder Dao stared at Yi Xian. He was about to make a move when the patriarch of Xuanao sect appeared in front of him again. Second Elder Dao suddenly turned his head and said fiercely, "Get lost." As soon as his voice fell, he punched out. Taoist fist. A punch with all his strength. Rumble. The surrounding starry sky trembled violently. Second Elder Dao retreated hundreds of feet, and the patriarch of Xuanao sect also retreated hundreds of feet. After stopping, he didn't make another move because his soul was already very transparent and was about to disappear. Seeing this, Second Elder Dao was about to take the initiative to attack, but at this time, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the patriarch of Xuanao sect. Second Elder Dao narrowed his eyes and turned to look in the direction of Fourth Elder Dao. At this moment, Fourth Elder Dao's soul had been absorbed by Yi Xian's sword, leaving only his physical body. His soul had been destroyed. Seeing this, Second Elder Dao's face became extremely ferocious. He turned to look at Yi Xian and said, "Yi Xian, my Taoist sect is absolutely irreconcilable with you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Don't you think it's stupid to say that now?" Behind Yi Xian, the patriarch of Xuanao sect suddenly said, "Young friend, this strand of my soul is about to vanish." Yi Xian turned to look at the patriarch of Xuanao sect, cupped his fists, and said, "I, Yi Xian, will remember senior's help." The patriarch of Xuanao sect smiled and said, "Just take care of my Xuanao sect." Yi Xian nodded and said, "Of course." The patriarch of Xuanao sect turned to look at the clouds again, and then his body gradually became illusory. Yi Xian glanced in the direction the patriarch of Xuanao sect was looking, but he couldn't see anything. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Senior, did you see something?" The patriarch of Xuanao sect was about to speak when he suddenly vanished without a trace. Yi Xian's eyes instantly narrowed when he saw this. Someone had forcefully wiped out the patriarch of Xuanao sect. Who was it? Yi Xian turned to look at the clouds, but there was nothing there. There were actually two women standing above the clouds, but Yi Xian couldn't see them. At this moment, Nian Nian suddenly said, "There should be a backup plan." The mysterious woman smiled and said, "Of course." Nian Nian nodded. "I'm looking forward to it." The mysterious woman smiled and said, "I'm looking forward to it as well." In the distance, Yi Xian retracted his gaze and turned to look around. The Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning monastery's patriarch were still there. With the two of them working together, they had killed more than 50 consolidation realm experts. Their strength was slightly inferior to the patriarch of Xuanao sect. At this moment, their strands of soul were becoming more and more illusory. At the sight of this, Yi Xian knew he could not delay any longer. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the supreme sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, he vanished on the spot. In the distance, the second elder's eyes narrowed slightly as he blasted a punch forward. Bang! A wisp of sword light was forced to a stop. In front of the second elder, Yi Xian stomped his right foot, and the Dao sword in his hand suddenly turned into a technological form. In the next moment, his strength increased explosively. Rumble. The second elder was knocked back hundreds of feet. Meanwhile, Yi Xian didn't attack the second elder again. Instead, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the distance. Qi. In the distant crowd, the head of a Dao sect consolidation realm expert flew into the air. Instant kill sword. Ordinary consolidation realm experts had no way of resisting Yi Xian's instant kill sword. Massacre. When Yi Xian entered the crowd, it was simply a massacre. Seeing this scene, the second elder's expression turned extremely ugly. He was just about to make a move when Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed at him. The second elder didn't dodge and directly punched out. Dao fist. As for Yi Xian's sword, it was a Dao sword. Boom! With a loud explosion, the two of them retreated rapidly. Yi Xian retreated 100 feet, and the second elder also retreated nearly 100 feet. The two of them were evenly matched. When Yi Xian had stopped, he raised his hand and brandished his sword at the right side. Instant kill sword. Qi. 100 feet to the right, the head of a consolidation realm expert flew into the air. Instant kill. In the field, the consolidation realm experts who came to help the Dao sect were finally afraid. Because up until now, more than 200 consolidation realm experts had died on the battlefield. Most of them were killed by the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning academy's patriarch, and some were killed by the 20 super assassins from Xian City. As for the elites of the Dao sect, they had always been restrained by the Dao returning academy's patriarch. In fact, without these three patriarchs, the situation in the fifth dimension would have become very bad. These three people were equivalent to hundreds of consolidation realm experts. After all, they were once all-powerful figures. As long as they did not encounter experts like the white-robed woman, even their split souls were not something ordinary people could fight against. Now, Yi Xian was also anxious. Because once the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning academy's patriarch disappeared, the situation in the fifth dimension would be very disadvantageous. Therefore, he had to end the battle while the two of them were still around. The second elder also understood this, and what he had to do was to stall them. As long as he could stall until the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning academy's patriarch disappeared, the situation would be reversed. The Dao sect still had a chance to win. At this moment, Yi Xian looked at the Shao clan's patriarch in the distance. "Senior, can you help me stall the second elder?" In the distance, the Shao clan's patriarch stopped and turned to look at the second elder. 15 minutes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "That's enough." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the second elder was about to attack when the Shao clan's patriarch appeared in front of him. The second elder said in a deep voice, "Sir, aren't you afraid that the Shao clan will be doomed?" The Shao clan's patriarch shook his head and smiled. "You're still threatening me now. You're too stupid." After saying that, he disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the second elder threw a punch. Boom! The surrounding space shook as if there was an earthquake. The Shao clan's patriarch was pushed back by the punch. After stopping, the Shao clan's patriarch shook his head. "It's just a split soul after all." After saying that, he rushed out. 15 minutes. He only needed to buy 15 minutes for Yi Xian. After Yi Xian rushed into the group of people in the distance, rays of sword gleams appeared, and each sword gleam took a life. Instant kill. In addition to his Dao body, ordinary consolidation realm experts would not be able to cause fatal damage to him. In a short while, Yi Xian had killed more than 10 consolidation realm experts. Seeing this, some of the consolidation realm experts who came to help the Dao sect chose to retreat. They were here to make a fortune, not to risk their lives. Especially now that the Dao sect was at a disadvantage. As those people left, the Dao sect's situation became worse and worse. At this moment, Nian Nian, who was in the clouds, suddenly raised her head and looked at the sky. In the next moment, she looked at Yi Xian's position. There, an afterimage silently appeared. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed with his sword. Boom! The sword gleam shattered, and Yi Xian retreated thousands of meters away. The afterimage waved its right hand, and the split souls of the Shao clan's patriarch and the Dao returning courtyard's patriarch were directly wiped out. The scene became silent. Chapter 1469. Everyone was looking at the afterimage, which was gradually becoming more and more solid. It was a woman in white, holding a jade flute in her hand. Seeing this woman, Yi Xian's expression gradually became serious. His opponent's attack just now had directly shattered his Dao body. A godly state expert. A true godly state expert. In the distance, the Dao sect experts became excited. Dao sect's third brother. Third miss. She was once the Dao sect's patriarch's proudest disciple. She only liked to cultivate and hunt for novelty, never getting involved in the internal affairs of the Dao sect. Back then, she was actually the most likely to become the Dao sect's leader because she was the Dao sect's patriarch's proudest disciple. Most importantly, she was the most talented among the 4 disciples. Unfortunately, after the Dao sect's patriarch disappeared, she only came back to take a look before leaving. Once she left, she never returned. Seeing third miss, second brother also heaved a huge sigh of relief. She finally came back. If she didn't come back, even if the Dao sect won today, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Moreover, the Dao sect was very likely to lose. Because if no one restrained Yi Xian, with Yi Xian's strength, he would probably be able to destroy all the Dao sect's consolidation realm experts. Second brother walked to third miss and stared at Yi Xian. Third junior sister, I'll hold Yi Xian back. Leave the rest to me. Saying that, he was about to make a move. At this moment, third miss suddenly said, second senior brother, I'm very disappointed. Second brother looked at third miss and third miss shook her head, very disappointed. Second brother said in a deep voice, what do you mean? Third miss did not answer second brother. She turned to look at the Dao sect experts, you guys also disappointed me. Everyone was silent. Third miss looked at second brother, do you think the Dao sect can win today? Second brother said in a deep voice, if junior sister is willing to help, can we lose? Third miss shook her head, second senior brother, you need to calm down. Calm down. Second brother narrowed his eyes, what do you mean? Third miss looked at second brother, as far as I know, you should have investigated Yi Xian. Then you should know that he is someone who has the cause of disaster, right? Second brother said in a deep voice, yes. But so what? The third young lady frowned. So what? Ask yourself, can you resist this cause of disaster? The second Daoist was silent. The third young lady continued, let's not talk about the cause of this disaster. Let's talk about this person's bloodline. Have you ever seen such a powerful bloodline? The second Daoist was silent. The third young lady continued, the most important thing is that the white-robed woman has seen the person behind this person before. Let me ask, when the white-robed woman was in the whirling sect, she summoned the Xuanji sect's ancestor, but what was the result? In the end, the profound secret sect submitted to Yi Xian. Yet, he was injured by a wisp of the Xuanhuan sect's ancestor's soul. Tell me, can he be compared to her? The second elder was silent, and his face was gloomy. The third young lady shook her head. When Master was still alive, Dao's sect was the #1 power in the world. However, Master often said that there is always someone better than you. No one is truly invincible. There is no strongest, only stronger. Second senior brother didn't remember what he said at all. The second Daoist spoke fiercely, it's impossible for there to be a power stronger than my Dao sect in this world. The third young lady sighed in a low voice. The reason why the Dao sect is strong isn't because of us, it's because of Master. But now, Master is gone. Understand? The second Daoist was slightly mad. He pointed angrily at Yi Xian and said, he's a true expert at the peak of the God rank realm. So long as he attacks, then Yi Xian will definitely die today. Why didn't he attack? The third young lady gazed at the second Taoist. After a short moment, she shook her head. I gave him the opportunity, but I didn't cherish it. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and an ink-colored ruler suddenly appeared in her hand. The Taoist ruler. The expressions of the experts from the Tao sect instantly changed when they saw it. It was a sacred artifact of the Tao sect that was only inferior to the Tao scriptures. It was used by the Tao sect's ancestor to discipline his disciples, and it contained the Tao laws that the Tao sect's ancestor had personally set up within it. The second Taoist's expression changed as well, and he took a few steps back. All those years ago, he'd been struck by the Taoist ruler, and it was already traumatized by it. The third young lady suddenly waved her right hand, and a ruler image flew out. Bang! The second Taoist was struck by the ruler image, and his skin and flesh split open while blood sprayed. His invincible Tao physique was as weak as paper before the Taoist ruler. Moreover, a mysterious force had directly restrained the second Taoist, causing him to be unable to move at all. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. After all, he possessed the Tao physique as well. The Taoist ruler seemed to be able to restrain the Tao physique. The second Taoist ruler stared fixedly at the third young lady. Third young lady, what are you doing? The third young lady turned around to gaze at an expert from the Tao sect. Take him to the Tao prison, imprison his soul, and seal his body. He can't leave the Tao prison for 100 years, 100 years. The old man was stunned. The second Taoist ruler's expression became ferocious. Third young lady, you dare. You dare. The third young lady gazed at the old man. Do I have to repeat myself? The old man hesitated for a moment before he walked towards the second Taoist ruler. The second Taoist ruler gazed at the third young lady and roared like a wild beast. Third young lady, what exactly are you afraid of? Who in this world can restrain him with his strength? So long as we make a move, we'll be able to kill Yi Xian right away and eliminate this great calamity for our Tao sect. The old man who was walking towards the second Taoist ruler stopped when he heard this. The third young lady shook her head. Go calm down first. The second Taoist ruler spoke ferociously. Third young lady, are you worthy of master for treating a fellow disciple like this? I, the second Taoist ruler. Meanwhile, the third young lady suddenly swung her ruler, and a shadow of the ruler smashed against the second Taoist ruler. Bang! The second Taoist ruler's body instantly collapsed. The second Taoist ruler was stunned. The other experts of the Tao sect were stunned as well. That attack was a little too ruthless. The Tao physique wasn't something that could be cultivated in a short period of time. It was destroyed just like that. The third young lady gazed at the old man. Take him away. The old man didn't dare hesitate at all, and he immediately left with the second Taoist ruler's soul. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed. It slashed straight at the second Taoist ruler. It was Yi Xian who'd attacked. Moreover, he was using the soul-suppressing sword. However, the soul-suppressing sword was directly clamped by 2 fingers when it was still several hundred feet away from Tao Old Second. The third young lady made her move. The third young lady flicked her jade-like fingers and the soul-suppressing sword flew back to Yi Xian. Third Miss looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, my Tao faction's people will be dealt with by my Tao faction. There's no need to trouble yourself. As she spoke, she raised her head to look at the clouds in the sky. Both of you, our Tao gate can't afford to play this game. We'll be leaving. I hope both of you can be magnanimous. After saying that, she turned around and left with the experts from the Tao sect. Yi Xian turned to look at the clouds. Who was that? Above the clouds, the mysterious woman beside Nian Nian smiled and said, looks like this sect isn't completely useless. Nian Nian licked the tongue hulu. Is there still a chance? The mysterious woman smiled and said, of course. Nian Nian said softly, I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of which, is your goal to make the Tao sect and Yi Xian hostile? The mysterious woman smiled and said, guess. Nian Nian looked down. I know that the Dao sect can't kill him. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want him to destroy the Dao sect and form a bad relationship with the Dao sect's ancestor. I understand your intentions. I want to magnify the cause of misfortune on him. As she spoke, she turned to look at the mysterious woman. I want to use the cause of misfortune on him to kill him. The mysterious woman smiled. How smart. Nian Nian gave the mysterious woman a thumbs up. Very smart. The mysterious woman smiled. There's nothing we can do about it. Nian Nian suddenly said, I'm a little curious about your identity. The mysterious woman smiled and said, in the past, I was a good person. As she said that, she looked into the distant horizon. They should be here soon. Below, as the third miss left with the experts from the Dao sect, some of the experts who came to help the Dao sect felt a little awkward. Because the Dao sect didn't bring them along. When they wanted to leave with the Dao sect, the experts of the fifth dimension stopped them, and the Dao sect didn't make a move. This was a little awkward. In fact, they wanted to escape at first, but after seeing the third miss, they felt that the Dao sect was enough. So they all stayed. However, what they didn't expect was that the third miss would directly leave with the people of the Dao sect. They didn't want to fight anymore. And now, Yi Xian's people wouldn't let them go. Yi Xian glanced at the Consolidation Realm experts. There were still about 100 of them. At this time, an old man walked out. The old man hesitated for a moment and then said, Young Master Yi, we can guarantee that we will no longer be enemies with the fifth dimension. I wonder if young Master Yi can let us go. Yi Xian smiled and said, No. As his voice fell, the sword in his hands suddenly flew out. Chi. The old man's head directly flew out. Instant kill. Seeing Yi Xian make a move, the expressions of the remaining Consolidation Realm experts changed drastically. One of the middle-aged men suddenly said fiercely, Since Yi Xian won't let us live, then we'll die together. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged out, and the experts behind him charged out as well. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. Kill. Leave no one alive. Leave no one alive. As soon as Yi Xian's voice fell, the experts behind him directly rushed out, as well as the 20 super assassins from Xian City. In order to reduce the losses, Yi Xian also attacked. Very quickly, bloody heads rained down from the sky, massacre. Without the experts of the Dao sect, although these Consolidation Realm experts were strong, they were far inferior to the fifth dimension in both quantity and quality. This was especially true for Yi Xian. Almost none of the Consolidation Realm experts present could withstand his instant kill sword. Once the sword was drawn, there would be death. In a short while, all the 100 or so people present were killed, and their souls were absorbed by Yi Xian's soul-suppressing sword. After absorbing those souls, the soul-suppressing sword directly returned to the prison pagoda. It was going to break through. Just when everyone thought that the matter was about to end, in the starry sky of the fifth dimension, a powerful pressure like a mountain crushed over. Boom! The entire starry sky of the fifth dimension directly trembled. Below, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head, and there was a trace of shock in his eyes. What a powerful aura! Who is this? P.S. This month is about to end. If you don't vote now, you won't have the chance to vote again. Hee hee. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.